InfoWars. Tomorrow's news today.
Usually, the mentally retarded are divided into classifications: the educable, the trainable, and the custodial. Obviously, we can only assess the abilities or potential of the mentally retarded on an individual basis. Seemingly random motions and movements are fairly common among the custodial retarded, and they may take many forms. Sometimes there are motions which seem to have no meaning whatever and may even cause unintentional self-inflicted injuries. The vast majority of the mentally retarded are intelligent enough that they can be taught a great many things. However, there's a wide range of ability even among those considered educable. And their ability to learn obviously varies according to their level of intelligence. Equally important is a stimulating environment. However, we must remember to set realistic standards that are not too high for the individual. Many of the trainable retarded can learn to take certain kinds of household responsibilities, some of which may be more complex than they are usually given credit for. It would be wrong to expect a mentally retarded person to become a master craftsman. The standards are too high. But even in the skilled trades, for example, the mentally retarded can be trained to become valuable assistants. Who are the mentally retarded? They are people. They come in both sexes and in all sizes, shapes, creeds, and colors. Wherever people live, there also live the mentally retarded.
Man, there's some problems with that. It's pretty funny, but I don't know that. There we go. I don't know that. That's proper use of words. I think InfoWars might have some issues. They're going to get some heat for that.
Well, I'm not sure Alex Jones is really that concerned. I think in Houston, Texas, where I'm at, tomorrow they're supposed to be locking them up and kicking them out for at least a week, maybe 2 weeks.
Who's locking who up and kicking who out for why?
So not locking them up, locking them out of his studio. They're going to kick him out of the studio, and it's a big, long story. You've seen it all over X. Did anyone see this on X?
Yeah, I
Turning the frogs gay.
Yeah. You wanted a war, you got a war. You know, something about it might be a thing, but you know, he had his little legal issues, and there was some money, and there was a thing going on there, and then now something with the federal government, and he's supposed to be kicked off because he's not complying with something with the federal government, and he's saying you can't kick me out of here because it's against the law to be a supplier of food and shut the doors and chain the doors up from someone who supplies food. And since he does these zombie apocalypse kits that has food in it, he's technically, in his opinion, he provides food or something. And so he's sleeping at the show, and tomorrow might be the very last day of InfoWars at the studio. And he went on to this whole entire show. That was the beginning of it. So that wasn't ours. That was actually InfoWars' beginning of a show that he did the other day on Friday. But that might have been his very last show ever, Alex Jones and InfoWars. So that was news.
Yeah, his CRO is throwing him under the bus, so to speak. He filed for bankruptcy,
right?
And but they're allowing him to stay open because nobody has that kind of money. So as long as his show is profitable, they take some of the money and it is paid to the victims of Sandy Hook, the parents. Well, what his CRO has said, and supposedly Alex has recordings of this, he's saying, "Yo, Alex, take some of this money and just pocket it. You know, that they don't know that, you know, you're having this much money come in." He's like, he said, I'm not stupid. I know what he was doing. So now the CRO has supposedly told the court that he's pocketing all the money, and that's against the court ruling. And he's saying that the feds are supposed to be seizing equipment and all that, but there is no court order to do that. So supposedly his private security, they come Friday, right after Trump's thing, but this was on Friday, trying to shut him down, and his private security firm, they had brought in some extra security, and they're not allowing them to come in because they don't have a court order, according to Alex Jones.
Yeah, Alex Jones security prevented the FBI from coming in there and locking the doors on Friday, but he's under the impression that, they're just going to come back in more force, like a Waco situation, or there really is not as much going on as he's saying, but it's a perfect, can the stream end on your end? Yes. It's a perfect opportunity for him to take advantage of what happened with Trump, and then say, oh, they're out to get me too, and kind of connect those dots. And then, oh my God, is he going to be on the air, off? Is this the last one? Let me listen to it. And it really did give him a lot of publicity on Friday. And then I think, of course, tomorrow on Monday, you're going to see, when he comes back on there, you really want to hear what happens. So it might be a publicity stunt, honestly, but then again, he has been in some legal trouble, and they're definitely happening.
Yeah.
Well, I think if the feds were, if they did come on Friday and they were turned away because they were essentially requesting a consensual, I guess, lockup or seizure of something, and they did not receive said consent, they can go back to the judge and get an order and come and actually enforce that order. But kind of makes you wonder, why wouldn't they get that in the first place, unless maybe what they have is not as strong as what they'd like it to be.
Yeah.
But I think if they come back, they'll come back with some paper and hang it. And you're not going to, security's not, there'd be fools to stand in the way of that, jeopardize their own freedom.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see a Waco moment of them at InfoWars. But if you did, that would be great ratings for him, man.
It would be great, but I don't think you're going to see it with hired guns, man. I mean, I'm not willing to go to prison for working some security gig.
And he also alluded that he's got other people that other I guess venues you could say that he can go to and still get his stuff out.
Yeah, he's like, I could be on Tucker Carlson tomorrow, and I could be on this person and this person. He's just Joe Rogan. He's just name dropping all these places that he could be tomorrow, and I can still do the show. So if you think you're going to stop me, you're not going to stop me. I'm still going to be on the air. I'm just not going to do it right here. So you're not going to stop me. So you might as well just let me do it here.
Yeah,
all that makes sense.
Y'all are not aware of the Streisand effect. Y'all need to look it up.
I'd have to look it up. What is the Streisand effect?
Is that Barbara Streisand?
Yeah, well, that's what I was referring to. Basically, they're trying to shut him down, but they're not going to shut him down because there's other avenues for him to continue on doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
You're not going to shut him up, and that's what they're wanting to do.
You're not going to take away the First Amendment.
That is so common that they've come up with a nickname for it, the Streisand effect.
Yeah.
It's got its own formula and theory.
Yeah, just start typing in Streisand in Google and see what the first thing comes up.
Man, now you're talking to me like I'm a sovereign citizen. Go do the research for yourself. You know what it is? Tell me what it is. What is the Streisand effect?
Is it because Barbara Streisand was so bad they couldn't shut her up, and so now she's like synonymous with this kind of stuff?
I don't know. I had heard of it years ago.
So you don't know what it is either. You're just telling me to look it up. You need me to look it up and tell you what it is?
No, he's pretty much telling you everybody knows about it. I can't believe you don't.
Everybody knows it, but nobody can say it. That's amazing.
It's a long definition.
The problem is he can't spell Streisand, so he's telling you to look it up.
I'm gonna look it up. I'm doing it right now.
Streisand. Thank you.
What does it say? No, Streisand effect. There it is.
We're all typing our little hearts away now.
Yeah, I feel more comfortable asking Gronk. You too?
I typed it in. Screw
yeah,
Gronk.
and then what does it say?
The Streisand effect is a phenomenon which an attempt to censor, hide, or draw attention away from something actually attracts more attention to it. The term is named after an American singer, blah, blah, blah. I don't care because I don't like Barbara Streisand. That's all I'm going to talk about.
Good. Well, there you go. you say, hey, Trump, you have a gag order and you're not allowed to say anything about it. Now is like, what the hell is he going to say? So you get more, you're actually making more attention go to there. And that's exactly what's happening to Alex Jones. Is I've never heard one InfoWar. I've heard him do some Howard Stern things. I did hear him on Tucker Carlson and a couple things that he's done in his career. But I've never like sat there and say, I just watch the show all the time. But now you kind of have an interest to find out what the hell he's going to say since this is going on. So they're really saying, hey, everyone, y'all should really pay closer attention to what he has to say. And everyone should start watching the show. So it's kind of working in the opposite effect of what they're trying to do is shut him up and make him go away. Is that pretty much in a nutshell what you were trying to say, John?
No comment.
Actually, the Streisand effects explains it very well, John. I just didn't know what it was. I don't think you knew what it was either, but somehow or other you pulled that out.
No, I'll be honest with you. It had been a while since I had heard it, so I had to Google it today. And,
and it is long. I'm giving John all the props on it. He called it. It was long, but it is very descriptive as to what we're talking about here. When you try to conceal something, but yet it just draws more attention to it.
It sounds like a reverse psychology situation.
It sounds like a really short version of that 16 minutes that you just spoke of trying to explain it.
I never claimed to be an expert on the Streisand effect, but apparently
I am now.
John opened the door. Now I know all about it.
Wikipedia even has the mechanism, the history and etymology.
Well, we don't need to go that deep. I mean, this is supposed to be of some interest to someone out there,
right?
Besides Barbara Streisand fans.
I don't. You know what? I'm not even sure if it's Barbara Streisand. It could be some professor somewhere, last name Streisand, that developed this theory. It seems to have its. It doesn't seem to be a pop theory. It seems to be like a real thing.
Yeah.
The term is named after an American singer and actress, Barbara Streisand.
There you go.
All right. Well, Steve, with the Range Minded podcast, I always appreciate you're fun at parties. I bet you're fun at parties.
Oh, yeah. That's why I never get invited.
I bet you're a great wingman.
Yeah. You know what we do, son? We stay in the friend zone.
Well, I can't go out tomorrow night. Yeah, you are. You're going out with that other girl. Oh, thanks, Range.
Yeah.
So jeez, you're letting all my secrets out. That's really why I don't get invited anywhere.
Unintended effect. Speaking of unintended effect and Barbara Streisand, no relation, but there's another female, and she is in Boston. She was married, she had a boyfriend that was in the Boston Police Department, and she drops him off at this house. Later on in the early morning hours, she's wondering how come he hasn't called. He's supposed to be home by now. I dropped him off. He hasn't called to say come back. We only live 2 miles away. He hasn't come back home because the kids need him in the morning. So in a panic, she's like, hey, has anyone seen him? And then someone who was at the party said, yeah, I'll help you look for him. That sounds terrible. The person helped him look for him. And then they find this dead body of her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, in the front yard of a house. And that's pretty much the story that's going on right now. Karen Reed was actually charged with manslaughter that was upgraded to second-degree murder. Right now, we are in the 19th day of the Karen Reed murder trial. This is probably one of the most interesting trials that I have ever in my life watched, and I am so hooked on it. Range, what do you know about this Karen Reed murder trial?
Well, I hadn't really been paying attention to it because it's been going on through most of the work days. But last week, when you guys were rolling your lives on it, I was like, I'm going to tune in because you guys have been very passionate about this case. And I totally understand why. It is extremely captivating and interesting to see the lengths, in my opinion, that the guilty parties are trying to frame her for something she had nothing to do with. It's pretty interesting. It's an intriguing case indeed.
Yeah. What do you think there, John? John's former law enforcement. So typically when you're talking to someone who's former law enforcement, they're going to more than likely, like a normal American, but more than likely past that, the former law enforcement is going to say, I believe the law enforcement. But the problem with this case is the dead officer was found on another Boston police officer's lawn. And so there's the conflict. So one person's dead. So the police is like, what officer am I supposed to be cutting for? And you see that they were actually trying to protect the person who the body was found on the front yard. So as a police officer, if you pull up on a scene and it's a dead body. I mean, we're not going to say murder. There's a dead body that is on the front lawn. What would be the steps as in your law enforcement career? What would you do when you see this dead body in the front yard?
So first of all, we're going to tape off the scene, and I mean the entire property.
That's step one.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to
secure the crime scene. Is that what it
secure
is?
the crime scene. Attempt to talk to any occupants of the said home. I mean, when you start, you got to keep in mind there's snow on the ground. So maybe not at that point, but when you start seeing evidence that, like where's my Post-it note?
If I can just give a little backstory. I mean, there's a lot more to the story, and if you know the story, bear with us. We're kind of walking into it, but at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30, 6:40, something like that, is where the body's discovered, and then the police finally get on the scene. There is approximately 2 inches of snow at that time. So you're investigating the person that's laying in the snow, 12 foot away from the curb. And he's laying there dead, has significant bruises, a gash in the back of his head. He has these scratches that are deep scratches on his arm. Both of his hands are bruised. One of the hands have a cut mark on it. Both of his eyes are black and blue. One of the eyes actually have a cut on it. And this is the body that's laying down, covered with blood and throw up, still alive, and still blood is flowing from his nose and his mouth. And this is the scene. When you pull up on the scene with 2 inches of snow, what are we doing? You secure the crime scene first, right?
Yeah, and then as it goes on, they found this, and I lost my Post-it note, but this rocks glass. I do remember that now.
Yeah,
this rocks glass right there near the body.
There was also a broken, shattered, like a tumbler, if you will, like a drinking glass. They called it someone else, but it was like a tumbler, like you would see. It was just the bottom part was the only part there. The top part wasn't there, which was interesting. Like, because if he was holding it, where's the other part of it? Yeah. But it was just the bottom part of a broken tumbler.
So, and then if you can establish that the homeowners, the homeowners where the body was found knows this guy. And he's got injuries that are consistent with being assaulted or whatever the case may be. I'm gonna say, hey, can we take a look around your house? Yeah, have at it. All right, go for it. No, all right, something's up. Let's go get a search warrant. Mr. Lanou kind of pushed back on me on that.
What if there wasn't the damage on him? He's just dead on the front yard, and there is no damage of something besides he was walking down the street and fell down.
Well, I mean,
I tell you what, before we dig into this, we got a couple of new folks in here. We got Grizzly Greg and Vet LT3 from the Night Court with Joe Lanou. These folks are the night crew. But let me play this about a 2-minute recap on who's who in this deal, and then we'll go back and talk about the search warrant if you want, John. But this kind of anybody that's not caught up, 2 minutes you can be caught up. Let's do that.
Let's do it.
Now we're doing it.
22-1117. John O'Keefe was a 46-year-old Boston police officer. He was off duty on January 29, 2022, when he was found lying in the snow outside a home in Canton. O'Keefe had grown up in Braintree with his older sister and younger brother. The sister, Kristen, was married to Stephen Furbush. Stephen and Kristen had a daughter and son. After Kristen and Stephen passed away, O'Keefe became the guardian of his niece and nephew.
The Furbush kids.
Moved into the children's home and became neighbors with Matt and Jen McCabe and their 4 daughters. O'Keefe and the children moved to 1 Meadows Ave in Canton. Chris and Julie Elbert lived on the same street.
At 3 Meadows Ave.
With their 3 sons, Chris Jr., Colin, and Dylan. In 2020, O'Keefe started dating Karen Reed, who later started living part-time with O'Keefe and the children. O'Keefe remained friends with the McCabes. O'Keefe introduced Reed to Jen McCabe, who both have multiple sclerosis. Colin Albert and Allie McCabe are close friends. Chris Albert has a brother, Brian, who was also a Boston police officer.
It's a pretty good breakdown.
Jen McCabe has a sister, Nicole.
I don't know if this is making
Brian
people
Albert
less
Sr.
or more
and Nicole
confused.
Albert are married and have 5 children, including Caitlin and Brian Jr. In 2022, Brian and Nicole Albert lived at 34 Fairview Road.
Crime scene.
Which is where John O'Keefe's body was found.
Okay, that actually wasn't as informative as I thought it was going to be.
No, I mean the Turtle Boy one gives you
Well,
what's going on.
Actually, I went to try to find the Turtle Boy one. That one popped up. I was trying to be quick with it. Didn't think that
Oh, I got you, dog.
make a rundown on that. But it does break down on who the different families are and how they are related. Like I was watching for a while before I realized that the Albert brother, Colin Albert, didn't live at the address where O'Keefe's body was found, but actually lived next door to O'Keefe down the street, and that they'd had some beef over some beer cans and stuff. But John, if you want to talk about the warrant, or Grizz and Greg, do y'all want to jump in and give us some commentary on this Karen Reed trial? I know that Vet's been covering it the best he can with us this last couple of weeks.
I was just going to say I would have at least tried to get in the house and see if there was another part of the crime scene in the house, and then go from there.
You and I had that conversation before I started reading a little bit on this and getting down dumps of Turtle Boy information from Kingdom and watching the trial. I don't have anything to say as far as like maybe the police did this or maybe it was difficult for them to have PC on that. I think the police did an actual horrible job. I just can't make up my mind. Do I think it's intentionally criminal or just incompetence? It's looking actually more like criminal, wouldn't you say, Kingdom?
Yeah, dude, 100%. But before I go there, just before you kind of expose everything, you just kind of want to say, like, just as a normal police investigation, if these were the facts, what would be a normal procedure that, in your opinion, what you would do? And I think most police officers would say something completely opposite of what actually happened. And that's just to start it off before all the other, that's suspicious. That's kind of, then there's a mountain of stuff that doesn't make sense. But just from a normal police officer that was saying, typically, basically, if I just went to a scene and there's a dead body out in the front yard, I would secure the crime scene. And then at some point, I would go talk to the person's house that the body was found and say, hey, did you know that this happened? Or, maybe kind of go from there. But since that person also was a police officer, they completely ruled that out. And they had what they would call tunnel vision and said, it has to be something besides a police officer, even though a police officer's dead, and they never interview him. They never. The whole thing was weird, and it gets weird. It gets more and more crazy the more and more that you hear about it. And at the end of the day, will there be justice for John O'Keefe? I doubt it. But did Karen Reed actually murder him? I think in any 12 jurors, there's no way that they're going to convict her. But as we listen to just the prosecution making their case, check this out. This is something important. The investigating officer, which his name is Michael Proctor, he still has not taken the stand. We're on day 19. I mean, is that weird? Isn't that the first witness you would call?
You talking about the lead investigator?
Come
on. Yeah, come on, man. That's 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 absolutely there's a problem with that. I mean, he's the guy that should be able to tell the story. He was the one who pulled all the strings, put everything together, completed your case file. He's the one guy who should be the subject matter expert on that entire case since he was the lead investigator. Him not being there, that screams louder than anything he would ever say, I think.
It's crazy.
But don't you worry. He will make an appearance. I promise you the defense is going to call him, and he's going to be there for days. They're going to wear him out.
I'm excited to hear the defense's side of this because
I know.
It's gonna be riveting. I'm stoked. I shouldn't get so excited because somebody's life is weighing in the balance here, but it's sure entertaining to watch and not in a weird way.
No, excited is a good thing because you want to see the truth. I want to hear what happened. I want to get more evidence that makes it clear that this is what happened. And the evidence that we've been hearing, I mean, think about this. The FBI has already had a federal grand jury has already happened. And a lot of these people that we want to hear testify have already testified on a secret, undisclosed federal grand jury already. And they're bringing in transcripts. There's also, what is it called? This cell phone data, John?
Celebrate.
Yeah. So yeah, on Celebrite, they already have like everyone's phone Celebrite, where they were, what messages deleted. The thing is so incriminating.
Well, now understand what a Celebrite is. Celebrite's a machine and a program that you can plug your phone into, and it dumps everything from your phone and clones it onto a computer. So they can do that and then hand your phone back, and they've got a complete clone of everything, every bit of data on your phone. So it's some pretty accurate stuff.
So the prosecution is going to call a witness either today. When I say today, I mean Monday, or sometimes this week. They're going to call a witness that is going to say that the Celebrite information is not always accurate. And it's possible that there could have been a text message at this time and it could have been deleted and it's not always accurate. Someone is going to testify to that offense, to that effect for the prosecution. Isn't that weird? I'm sure they've convicted hundreds of people on the Celebrite. It's like, oh, shit.
Celebrite got Alex Murdaugh convicted.
Yeah, no, yeah. And
man, it's got so many. You can't even count the people Celebrite's got convicted.
Yeah.
Using that back when I was a cop in 2004 to 2012 when I was using them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think though. I think that what they're trying to do. Yeah, that Celebrate has gotten mountains of people convicted because it's predominantly very accurate. But there's always the potential in a data transfer that a bit, like it's all digital data and it's ones and zeros. And when you do data transfer, a bit can get lost or a bit can get transposed. It's not infallible. And I think that's probably what they're going to present, is that there's always that possibility. Don't rely on that data too much because there's always, so they're just trying to throw something out there to try to create the potential for a reasonable doubt, right?
Yeah. Well, the prosecution is trying to prevent a reasonable doubt that they actually have a case that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I think after Higgins' testimony, the end of last week, I think reasonable doubt has been met.
Yeah. Hey, I tell you what, I do have something exclusive for you. This is the prosecution. This is their reenactment of what they're claiming that possibly happened. I'm going to bring this up for you. Listen to this.
The time is around 12:30 a.m. and Karen O'Keefe's body was found. This is based on the prosecutor's opening statements that Karen Reed's vehicle traveled 60 feet in reverse at 24 miles an hour when hitting John O'Keefe. Karen leaves and drives back to O'Keefe's house, where she goes to bed for the night. Supporters of Karen Reed question these events. One thing is, it's reported his cell phone was found under his body instead of being thrown in a different direction. Other things that don't make sense is how someone being so far down the road would stop, back up quickly with the intent of hitting someone, and then that person would just stand there and not get out of the way. For me, one of the biggest questions is how it is possible that no one witnessed this. This wasn't some quiet night and everybody was in bed. There was nearly a dozen people in the home having a party. That's why Karen and John were there in the first place.
So, I mean,
but it's also like 20 degrees outside, and ain't nobody hanging outside at a party in the winter.
The damage is on the back of his head, so he would had to like turn his head and make sure it hit the taillight. He had to bend down because the taillight would have maybe hit his abdomen part. And there was testified that there was a Jeep there by the mailbox. So if she was going that fast in the snow, she would have had to slam. I mean, then they were saying, Michael Proctor said that, oh, no. What happened was she did a 3-point turn. It's like,
Yeah.
how could you go fast enough with a 3-point turn? That doesn't make sense. And then no one sees the body out there until about 5. No one sees the body until 6 in the morning.
Yeah, after 6.
So no one's seen the body at 2. No one's seen the body at 3. The plow truck driver, no one sees the body. But at 2:27, someone that was in the house went home and did a search on their phone. How long to die in cold? It was misspelled.
Hoslong.
How long to die in cold, and then they deleted that. And then 2:22, just 5 minutes before that, Brian Albert and Brian Higgins, they're butt dialing each other and saying, hey, but in his butt's like, hey, as he's having intimate relations with his wife or whatever, apparently, allegedly, or whatever. So he's butt dialing Brian Higgins, and then he butt hangs up, and then Brian Higgins allegedly butt dials him back, and they speak for 22 seconds. But that was just, that those Celebrate records are showing all this, and they're just denying everything, which is crazy. So you have that right there at like 2:22, 2:27. They drug him out after that, probably about 3:30 or something is when they actually got him out of the house. And none of this stuff makes sense. They forgot to bring his hat, and they forgot to bring one of his shoes, which was found like 14 hours later. They finally, when it had already snowed over a foot, they found fragments of the taillight. They never found on the initial investigation. They found fragments of the taillight, 38 pieces of polycarbonate taillight that you would have to be going faster than 20 miles an hour, and you have to hit something that's 2,000 pounds for it to even crack. It would never shatter, even if you hit it with a hammer and get 37 pieces clearly planted. And they found it on top of the snow, and this other shoe that they said, oh shit, I forgot to bring the shoe out. They found the shoe, the hat, and they found the taillight on top of the snow, not under the, on top of the snow. And then there's like messages from Brian Albert inside the house that's telling the investigator, when the Boston Canton Police Department turned it over to the state police department after 2 hours, their friend, Michael Proctor, who's a family friend, they have the text messages saying, hey man, thanks for taking care of this. When this is over, I owe you one. And then Michael Proctor's like, no, don't give it to me. Just do something nice for my wife. And then at some point they're like, what was that movie? Like Goodfellas or something, where the wives are calling each other, but really the husbands are communicating through the wives. The whole thing is just a complete cover up. And it's sad because it's police, and you're talking about dirty ass fucking police. And most police, they that has to be, you'd have to show me five things of evidence that tells me that happened, because normally a person would always give the police the benefit of the doubt. But in this situation right here, it's tough. It's tough to give the benefit of the doubt.
Brother, I'm going to tell you, as former law enforcement, it makes it even worse. Some of the things are screaming. You take this Brian Higgins. He's an ATF agent. He's at the party that night. He's got some weird movements. Here's the thing, folks, that haven't really followed or may not know the timeline, but this group of law enforcement friends and family had gone out to 2 bars. Amongst all of them didn't go to the same 2 bars, or to go to one went to one went to the other, maybe. But either way, they wind up at one bar and decide to go to have an after party at this Brian Albert's house. They start arriving there between 12 and about 12:45 in the morning. So all these 12 people they talk about on that reenactment, they get there within about a 45 minute time period for an after party. They're ready to drink it up. The night is young. O'Keefe arrives there just like 12:20 something. Am I right, Kingdom? About that time frame? Not to be exact, but about like that.
Yes. And when he arrived there was someone where they come to a T intersection where there's a person that yielded and let her go first and pulled up right behind her. And so she drops off John. John walks in the house. They got the guy who's not involved with this, no reason to lie, testified to that. Then she moves forward a little further up, And then she's on the phone trying to figure out if he's going to communicate back and say, okay, it's safe, just go ahead and take off. But she never got that communication. This guy passes her. She has the cabin light on in her car. She has her hands at 10 and 2, and you can.
But you're muddying my point. My point is not all that. It's this simple part right here. When we talk about how cops and stuff are, is they all get there between 12:30, 12:40, and by 1:30, everybody's leaving. So you're telling me they all take this effort to go over there to have this knockdown after party drinking just cops now, right? You can let your hair down. You don't have anybody watching you. It's all you're amongst friends. But that only lasts for 40 minutes. Everybody goes home. This Brian Higgins takes his ass to the Canton Police Department where he's got a loaned office. He's not a Canton police officer. He's a federal agent, but he's got a loaned office there. So he goes there because he says he's got to move vehicles for snow plowing. But now O'Keefe's body's found at 6 a.m. He didn't go home. He doesn't go to sleep. He goes back to the scene, and then he goes back to the police station, stays at the police station for 8 hours. This guy was fingers all up in the middle of this investigation. And to top things off, every cop knows this. When they start looking at him, he goes and pulls off the pertinent text messages he knows they have because they pulled other people's Celebrite stuff. So if I sent you a text, I mean, but they can get it from you. They can get the information. He took the stuff that they knew they were that they could get off of it. They knew they could get anyway, and then pulls his SIM card, throws it in one dumpster, and throws his phone in another dumpster on a military installation. Nothing but dirt there. I don't know what's going on. I can't prove the cover up, but that's dirty police work, and that's just not standard for law enforcement. I'm just telling you, that's not standard.
Then the judge signs this order. What is the one where you can't delete the evidence? What's it called?
Preservation letter.
So they have a preservation order.
Well, a preservation order, correct.
A preservation order, and both Brian Albert and Brian Higgins delete their phone at the same time the day before and get rid of their phones the day before the preservation. It's like, I mean, it's just like 25 or 30 of things just like that don't make sense. And you're like, maybe if it was just one thing, I mean, we could probably get around that, but 30 things like that? I don't, I mean, what else have you seen on that, Steve?
Wasn't there the second brother that's the Boston PD? Wasn't his son having a party in the basement of the house as well? Did I catch that wrong?
Yeah,
so there was more
Higgins
than just
Jr. Excuse me, Brian Albers Jr.
So there was more than just the adults upstairs. There was a group of youngsters, teenagers in the basement having a good time as well. There's no way, I guess, you know, we were all kids once. It's fun to have a party and all. But with all that commotion, there's no way that the kids didn't see anything, didn't hear anything. I just, it's pretty strange to me. And then the whole dog thing, the vanishing German Shepherd. I mean, the math is not there. It doesn't add up.
Yeah, dude, it's a mountain.
So I didn't realize till the other day that the niece and nephew has testified, but it was not recorded, video recorded or audio recorded. So
that was Friday.
Yeah, it was Tuesday, wasn't it?
No, it was Friday. The last day of last week was Tuesday. Yes.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting too.
I think Kingdom, you got some insight on that, don't you? Didn't Turtle Boy whisper in your ear for $500?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, for $500, they'll give you a little reach around. No,
when he brought the bag of dogs.
So basically, they had the kids up on the stand, and you're not allowed to talk about it. And anyone who's in the media, like he has his press credentials. You're not allowed to say who the person was, but basically, it was John O'Keefe's kids. The ones that he adopted is his actual true niece and nephew. And they were up there testifying, and basically the prosecution was running them around talking about, did she ever yell at you? And yeah, she got mad at me one time when I didn't finish my food. And, was she ever strict? Well, did they ever get into fights? And then the kids are like, yeah, well, I mean, sometimes they would argue, and then he would walk in another room and she would follow him, and then they would continue an argument. It was like a few things like this that they're actually training the children to testify against Karen Reed. And the thing about that one is it's terrible that you're bringing these kids in, because what value are they really going to give? They didn't see anything or do anything, but you're just trying to paint her as a bad person or something. So when it was the defense's turn to ask questions, they basically asked, was there any violence that ever happened? Was there any kind of physical abuse that happened? And then as soon as the answer was no, Turtle Boy claims that this was probably the most touching point in the whole entire trial. One of the most touching moments is he just sat there, and the way he delivered it was excellent. He just said, "I'm so sorry that you had to come in here and do this. No further questions."
Wow.
I'm going to say, man, I think that just shows desperation on the prosecution side. I mean, the children weren't there. They're not really material witnesses. The only thing they could testify to is how well those children thought their relationship was. So I think that was I think that shows desperation on the prosecution. They've got to know they're in trouble.
It's pretty shitty.
Well, the other thing, again, I haven't been as involved in this as you guys have, but I was watching the doctors, their testimony, and that seemed extremely odd to me. Like when they were, difference between the prosecution and the defense, like that was a very weird interaction to me. What were your guys' thoughts on that?
You're talking about the ER doctor that treated O'Keefe when he came in. You know what? I thought that was weird as well, because I noticed the same thing you did. There was definitely a disposition change when the defense began to ask questions. He was more agitated and guarded, more defensive. Which, I don't understand. That doctor should have no dog in that fight at all. Yeah, this is what happened.
He should have been completely biased, but he was definitely biased towards the prosecution. Like, it was strange.
You could tell he was getting defensive when the defense was, asking him questions. You can clearly tell a different posture that he took with the defense versus the prosecution. But then again, this guy, like if I had to, let me pull up something right here for you. If I had to interview someone, and this is the witness list. So what you have right here is in yellow are the people who've already been called. So
Can you make that larger?
I wish I could. It's not a thing where you can maximize it like a video.
Oh, actually, I'm good. I got it now. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the names that are in yellow are the people who have been called. So if there was like 5 people from the hospital, you have the person who was actually addressing the person that was the nurse on duty, and that was the one that had him in the room, because there was like 15 rooms or something that they were testifying. You don't want to bring that person up there. You don't want to talk to that person. You don't want to talk to someone who really has some knowledge. What they did was they have the person who's the head doctor that didn't have any interaction whatsoever. All he can do is just protect the hospital from getting sued and just kind of read the reports and say, based on this, our stance is this. But he didn't have any firsthand experience of, I treated him and man, these bruises were like this, or Karen Reed came in with the ambulance. So I said, hey, maybe we should just take a look at you. I mean, he made it look like that they involuntarily took her because her mental state was so crazy. He definitely did a testimony that looked good for the prosecution, in my opinion. But not the person to ask, like, that would be like saying, hey, something happened here. Let me talk to someone who wasn't even here and was like in the next state. Let me interview him to read this report. That way you really can't cross-examine him because he wasn't there. So this doctor was a great person to interview. That way you really couldn't ask him any questions, which you've seen. Alan Jackson, this attorney that was also the attorney for Kevin Spacey, when he got off with the kid and everything, he actually, through the phone records, he proved that it was a consensual thing, and he got Kevin Spacey off, even though they fucked up that show. What was it called? That show he was on Netflix.
Could you restate how he didn't get in trouble, please?
Who?
Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey?
Yeah, you said he didn't get off. He got off. I really think you need to rephrase that better.
Get off. I mean, he definitely got off, and there was an 18-year-old bartender. But what it was is the mom went in there and said no, that he was sexually assaulted by Kevin Spacey. So
but eventually he got off again.
So he hires the best attorney he can, and Alan Jackson, who's the same attorney for Karen Reed, he specialized in the Celebrite records. And even though the mom and the boy, the bartender, had deleted all of these incriminating things saying, hey, why don't you come over here and let's do these things as consensual, they deleted all that. Alan Jackson They brought back the records and showed they delete the stuff that was consensual, and then Kevin Spacey got off based on that. So when Karen Reed had the best attorney in Boston, they knew that they were up against too much, and these phone records were everything. So they hired from LA, Los Angeles, they hired Alan Jackson, who's been coming in, but he wasn't there on Tuesday, the only day of court last week, because there's just a medical person. This person didn't have anything to do with it. And what is he going to testify to? So they didn't bring Alan Jackson back for that one day. But he's a badass, in my opinion. He's a badass Johnny Cochran type of attorney. And Karen Reed's in good hands. Whenever he talks, I just cannot wait until the defense gets the opportunity to make their case. He's a killer, man. And not in that way. He's just a very good attorney. And he is going to mop the floor with these crooked, especially when he gets Michael Proctor on the stand. Oh my God. And the medical examiner. Those are the two I'm looking for.
Well, go back to your list. I didn't see the medical examiner on the list because they haven't testified. Now they testified in the grand jury, but they haven't testified in the on the actual trial. But Grizz, Vet, you guys want to add anything?
I think that's Maureen.
Here is not
Maureen Harnett. The ones in red is the people that you probably should interview that they haven't yet, and the ones that are in white are ones that it really doesn't make a difference whether they testify or not. They're not going to help the case. You can see the number one person over here in the upper left-hand corner, Trooper Michael Proctor, the Massachusetts State Police. He's the lead investigator. They have not called him. He would be the number one person you would call. They have not called him. And then also, if you're looking down there, you'll see that the in 71, Maureen Harnett, the Massachusetts State Police crime lab lady, that's another one that they're
now. The big one is number 26, Dr. Irene Scorti-Bello. She's the medical examiner. She's the medical examiner. Now, what we're talking about, you're talking about dogs, you're talking about all these wounds and things. And she's already testified in the grand jury, but she's not under cross-examination in the grand jury. So it's going to be interesting to see if they put her up. If they don't put her up, that's just as telling as saying not putting a Proctor up. Both of those there's some big problems with their case if they can't put one of those two. They can't put both of them up. Honestly, there's a problem with their case. But if they can't put both of those up for whatever reason, because the defense is not going to leave them alone. They will be called on the defense when they take up, because there's a reason why they're not testifying. It's not because they're busy.
I do have a question. Let's say me and Range Minded just got into a beef that I just said something and we for some reason we just couldn't see eye to eye from second one. There's furniture moving. We get into a fight. Both of his eyes are black and blue. His head's all busted up. I carry him out to the street. There's defense wounds on the hands. So clearly there's got to be something under the fingernails. I mean, there's got to be something on John O'Keefe's body. There has to be DNA on his body that says something besides a car hit him. Got to. Or, I mean, what's your opinion? Could you clean that up? Can you scrub that up? Or could they cover it up and say, I'm sorry, I found it, but cover it up and throw it away like they've done everything else? Or,
well, I mean, you could scrape fingernails. I mean, there is ways to clean it. I don't know if you can be 100%, but you could be where it wasn't found. But when you look at the Proctor's behavior, when you look at some of these other folks' behaviors, then I'm not saying maybe even the medical examiner is not as dirty as the rest of the town. This is not the only incident, by the way, in Canton. And I don't want to get into that just now. I think Vet's got something to say. Let me go to Vet.
Oh, no. What I wanted to say was, even if they can't clean it up, you can just not do it, since the whole investigation seems to be a whole jack pile of crap, So if they just don't even look for the defensive wounds or any kind of things under the fingernails, then there you go. They didn't have to clean it up because they didn't look for it. But what I wanted to add was when they were doing the breakdown of the people that were in the home, the person that is the friend of the son that was having the birthday, because it kind of spreads out kind of far. So it was
Colin Allen.
Yeah, his girlfriend was there, and then a friend of theirs was there. If I was the defense, I'd go after that person if they were, of course, legal age to be on the stand, because they have they have a lot to lose, and they're not as tied in with the family. They're kind of on the outskirts. Maybe you can get to them, say, hey, do you really want to, if this gets dismissed, do you really want to be in trouble, be a part of this? Do you want to get in trouble for this? You know, they're not your family. You just were there celebrating a friend's birthday. You know, that's a person I would look at if I was the defense, because that person might be easier to break, if that makes sense.
It does. And they've already had, all of those people have already testified in this case. The working theory of the defense is John O'Keefe went in the house. They do have evidence that proves that he was in the house, but they're thinking that
what evidence do they have that's been presented that proves he was in the house?
His phone went up and down the stairs inside the house.
That's been presented, or that's just what we're hearing?
Yeah. No, that's already been presented in the trial, that his phone went up and down the stairs in the house, and they're saying that maybe it was from he was on a speed bump, or as he left in something. But the prosecution and everyone who's testified has all said the same thing. He never went into the house. He never went into the house. But the defense is saying he did go into the house. And Colin Albert, who's already been documented, that was the kid that was 18, that was a hothead. He was a football player. He lived 2 doors down. He was already harassing him multiple times and throwing beer cans in his house, on his yard and stuff like that. Colin Albert had a reason. Plus, Brian Higgins, it was also proven that he had this romantic relationship. Karen Reed's, when they were talking about, oh, you were texting this, it's just showing he has no fucking game whatsoever. He's in the friend zone with Will Ferrell. He's in the friend zone. But you know, it's like when he's about to tap the booty, you know, he's like, well, let's just talk about my feelings. And it was ridiculous how much game he doesn't have. But anyway, it showed that he had motive, because Karen was texting him saying John was looking at he has cameras everywhere. I know where they are though, but he was looking at it over and over of me walking you out. And he's asking me, is there something going on here? So between Colin Albert, that had a motive, which I think if you look at some of these videos that he has online, he said he never got in a fight. There's plenty of videos now that Turtle Boy is brought to life that he was in fact in fighting. He can't fight very good. There's no way that he took on John O'Keefe. So it had to have been Colin Albert, Brian Higgins, the ATF agent, definitely has a motive. Did he help out? Why would he continue to help out and go police all this thing unless he was involved? Because he's the clear one that has testified a little bit different. I might have seen someone fitting the description of John O'Keefe coming in. That way, if it's ever proved, he did say it in the federal grand jury. So him, and then the person who is a trained jiu-jitsu fighter is the person who actually lives in the house, which is the superstar, and the well-connected person in the town was Brian Albert. So it's probably Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, and Colin Albert are more than likely the 3 people that took the fight on. And then it was also assisted by the dog, who was not very good with strangers, and he was probably gnawing on his arm. It was a combination of that. I think it happened within the first 10 minutes of him being in the house, but they thought they would revive him or something would go on. And then somewhere around the 2 o'clock to 2:30 range, or somewhere around the 1:45 to 2 o'clock range, they realized this is the point of no return. He's dying. He's throwing up. There's nothing we can do. We need to figure out a way to do something. So let's just get him out of the house and just put him on the front yard. They did forget the shoe. He didn't have a belt when he had one before, which we explained that one, but he didn't have his hat. And then later on, when they're sitting here texting 2:27, how long to die in cold and stuff, she volunteers to go with someone she doesn't even hardly know, to Karen Reed, to buy some time to figure out how much time they have. And then when they go find the body, that's when you have Karen Reed and everyone. She's finding it, and she did tell Jennifer McCabe, the person who was riding around with her, well, I think I did crack a taillight, which they have on the video when she backed out of the house where she was at John O'Keefe's house. She did back in the John O'Keefe's Traverse and crack the taillight a little bit. But since she said that story, Jennifer McCabe controlled the narrative and said, she said, could I have hit her? Did I hit her? Could I have hit her? And then they took that one, and then they used that to frame her and grab more taillight, because she admitted that, instead of just keeping her mouth shut. But why wouldn't you say that? Who would think you did it? It doesn't make any sense that she did it. But since she said that, they took that and they used that information and put this plot together to frame her. And that's pretty much where we are. Can you prove all the stuff that happened in the house? No. But does the evidence show that she backed into him and that's how it happened? Absolutely not. And every time you hear someone testify, clearly That shit does not add up at all. Nothing does. And it's comical to watch people lie their way through it because it's clearly the evidence is showing they're lying. They're like, no, the Celebrite, you can't trust that.
Well, now we ended on, there was no court except for Tuesday this last week. Monday was Memorial Day. Tuesday, they had a full day court.
Boring.
Boring. Yeah, super boring.
It was boring. We didn't have our firebrand LA attorney out, and they kind of threw some softballs to Higgins, got him out of there, established that he threw his phone away in some dumpsters, like that was no big deal. When anybody that knows anything about anything, yeah, that's actually a huge deal. But either way, ended with the snow truck plow drivers.
Michael Trotta.
Didn't really even get the defense. They left it with the defense, and I believe he's still on the hook to be the first one called back. I don't think he was dismissed, or did the defense? Okay, the defense rested, and that's where we ended on Tuesday. So tomorrow, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow, Kingdom? I mean, who do you think it's still the state's case? So the state's still going to call some, but are they going to call the medical examiner? Do you have any inside information from Turtle Boy? Did he whisper in your other ear for another $500 until
we're best friends now, man. The whole thing happened. No, so to show you,
Big spoon or little spoon?
Exactly. So this guy right here, if you remember him, this guy is the librarian, where everyone's forced to listen to this librarian tell the story about how how the security system works. But basically, just to summarize it up without boring you with the details, he said that he had no reason to lie, and he's not lying or anything. He gave Michael Proctor the thumb drive. But in court, if you notice it, they had this like burnt CD-ROM, like this gold burnt CD. And he was like, hey, isn't this, what you gave him? He's like, no, that don't look familiar. I didn't give him that CD. And you're like, oh, well, I must have missed out. Like you see him back. Oh, you never gave him this. And he's like, well, can you testify to what's on it? And he's like, I didn't give him that. He didn't say the words, but he actually gave him a thumb drive instead. They took the thumbs drive, they burnt it onto the CD, and it's missing the 4 minutes when Karen Reed rode by. Another thing that's interesting is when you see the old man, Michael Trotta, it's hard to really tell kind of what happened there. Obviously Turtle Boy, cracked it, and he interviewed him before the case even happened, part of his witness intimidation, because he was getting too close. But for Michael Trotta, he told him that yes, the company actually goes down in the middle of the road, and then they hire this other person who does the sides, and that's how it happens. But Michael Proctor said that the old man, Michael Trotter, said, we never went down Fairview Avenue that night. Never. That's what it says in the police report. But the old man, Michael Trotter's like, no, I told him we went down there in the middle, and then they have an interview of the actual driver. He told him the driver's name, who is on the witness list. The defense will call him. He said, I'm sitting in the elevated position. I'm looking everywhere. I have my brights on, and I'm telling you, he'll get defensive if you ask him. I definitely look over there because there's a fire hydrant over there. And whenever we're plowing streets, we have to know where the fire hydrants are, because those are the big problems when we're plowing. So he definitely plowed it. The person who came afterwards was a company that's actually owned by Chris Albert's friend, and it's called whatever the hell the name of the company is. But they didn't even get incorporated until the day before they were trying to find out the records of it, and it's whatever the name of the company is, but it's owned by Chris Albert's friend, and they incorporated in 2023. This happened in 2022. And so I think that's why Brian Higgins is lying, acting like he's fucking driving this Jeep with a snowplow. So that way, if they find out some story, he can say, no, the reason why the streets were plowed because my Jeep Wrangler went down there and plowed them. So fucking bizarre. But that's the deal with the Jeep and shit. So I know that didn't answer your question, but that's something you didn't know.
The other thing I thought was interesting is Mr. Snowplow guy.
Yeah,
said that they have Jeeps with snowplows, but yet this other dude decided to get a Jeep with a snowplow. Was he like trying to blend in somehow? So, oh, look, yeah, I mean, that's me. I did that too. I don't know. I thought that was kind of weird.
I think he's got one as a little side gig where maybe he sweeps out driveways or something like that. But you know what? Go back to the librarian, the library video. The town IT guy cuts that, puts it on a thumb drive, gives it to Proctor. And at first I'm thinking, well, they could have altered it. You would take some sort of forensic analysis to figure that out. But then I don't know why it didn't dawn on me. I dealt with this type of evidence all the time, but we always cut the first original and you mark it as original and it stays in your case file. You keep the original. Everything thereafter is a copy, and I would number how many copies I hand out. So the prosecution would get a copy unless we go to trial. Then they would maybe ask for the original. A lot of times they didn't. But if anybody ever questioned my video, I would be able to pull out the original and show where the original was dated, and that's what it looks the same as it should look the same. Otherwise, it's been doctored. But that wouldn't like my personal practice. That was our practice, is the way we treat digital evidence that's transferred from digital devices. So he should have, Proctor should have an original to be able to dispute this being tampered with, and the fact that her tail light couldn't be seen by the librarian camera. We hadn't seen that, have we?
You know something that's interesting. I don't know if you've ever lived, Joe. I don't know if you've ever lived in a place where it snows. Let's just assume that everyone has experience in a place that it snows. If you're a guy who's making, say, $18 an hour at your normal job, if you have a snow plow, you're making $300 an hour with this freaking snow plow. If it snows, you're like, hell yeah, because I'm about to get paid. They're just going to pay me to sit around and do nothing. I mean, I know snowplow drivers. I'm from the Northern Virginia area. But when it snows, it doesn't snow all the time, but when it snows and you have a snowplow, you're not leaving at 1 o'clock in the morning when it just started snowing to go back to the fucking office and do some paperwork. You're going to be out there fucking plowing some driveways and making some serious freaking cash. And the fact that
inside Frankenstein.
Oh, 100%. But instead, you go to the office with a Jeep that has a snowplow and you don't even take advantage of the opportunity to plow snow, and you work at the police department all day covering up the murder. That right there, no one really said anything like, oh, that's kind of suspicious. But if you were driving a Jeep with a snowplow and you never even plowed any snow with it, that's super weird. But he claimed that when he first got there, before anyone got there, he kind of scraped the driveway and plowed the snow. But it shows on the library thing, there wasn't even any snow on the road yet when he was talking about he was plowing. It's like,
well, in even his testimony, he said when they drove from the bar to the house, and he said he was joking when he plowed the driveway. He even said that the roads, it was starting to stick on the grass, but the roads were still wet and dark. That was his description. So the snow wasn't there at that time. And it also goes against the fact of when people are leaving the party, they're like, well, it was snowed, the body was under the snow. No, the snow hadn't even started yet. It didn't start until just about the time the body was discovered, shortly before.
Yeah.
He wasn't covered in snow. He was in dark clothing, laying on a white driveway. Or
no, it was
yard.
Yard.
Yeah.
They took him out, like literally, if you're taking a veteran out and you take him and you put him underneath the flag, they took him out like a fucking piece of trash and threw him out on a fucking corner, 12 feet away from the curb. And the only reason that this lying piece of shit fucking ATF agent Brian Higgins is lying about the snowplow is because the person who actually did drive the snowplow has incriminating information that he's seen a Ford Edge at 3 o'clock in the morning. The first at 1 o'clock in the morning, there wasn't a Ford Edge, but or 2 o'clock. But when he came back at like 3:30, there was a Ford Edge parked in that exact spot. And that's the same vehicle that Brian Alberts drives. And it's also the same car that Colin Albert, the young kid who they claim never was there. Then they said, oh, I'm sorry, he was there, but he left as soon as we got there. He was there, and he definitely had something to do with it. So that's why they made up this story that Brian Higgins was driving this Jeep with a snowplow. So that way he can say that maybe he's the one that plowed the road. It's all bullshit. And the extent of this cover up, you're just seeing little breadcrumbs, but I don't know how any of these people can still be active duty police officers like Michael Proctor right now. I can't understand for any reason why they are not on some temporary leave until this investigation comes, because there's already enough to say something's up, dude.
It stinks too many different directions.
Oh God!
Everywhere you turn on that, something doesn't add right. Now, what about if he's 12 foot off the road and there was falling snow? It wasn't green grass when this occurred. Either if you go with the state scenario or if you go with the defense scenario, there still was a layer of snow on the grass, right?
Sure. At 6 o'clock in the morning, there was 2 inches. You see the yardstick where they showed
So
it.
what about if we go with the state's assertion that he was killed 12:20, 12:30, and that's where he would lie there all night? Are you saying that his back was on grass, or was it a white background? I'm trying to say, how hard would it be to miss that driving by, and then also how hard is it for you to place a body there and not leave footprints in the snow?
I think the footprints in the snow, I believe that this was covered up. I think it came out the driveway. There were so many people coming in and out. There was footprints all over the damn place. I think they brought it in from the sidewalk, and then where that car was parked, they probably put it in the back of the car, drove it over to the flagpole, and then tossed it as far as he could. The thing that you've seen in that beginning video is he was on top of the phone. So the phone went down and then he went on top, which is not consistent of the phone falling out of your pocket or for some reason or whatever like that. That would be on the, I mean,
well, man, you're not gonna throw a grown man of his size 12 feet.
You walk him out there, but the thing is when they found the body, they made sure that they walked out there, and Karen Reed was sitting there, the only person that's administering CPR, and they're walking all around the fucking crime scene. So you can't tell that, oh, they made these 5 steps where how the body got there. There was already 3 people in the car looking for the body. When they found it, they're walking all over it. So there's footprints everywhere.
Yeah.
True.
And plus with 2 inches of snow, it's not going to cover the body. Like, there's no way. It would take 13, 14 inches at least to make it covered somewhat. You're still going to see his clothing in contrast to the white snow.
Yeah. And you're not really plowing the roads until later on. I mean, you're plowing the roads, but the plow did go through there, even though it was only like 2-3 inches. I mean, the plow went through the initial one, and then the other contract for the secondary private contractor, they actually went through and plowed it later on. But the actual person that Michael Trotter is in charge of, Lucky, the tow truck driver's name is Lucky. He actually seen it, and he was already interviewed by the FBI. So that one is not, I guarantee that plow driver the snow plow driver, he will not be called by the prosecution.
Well, it looks like the prosecution's got a few people on their not going to call list, but I don't believe that's going to be the case for the defense. I think the defense is going to find their number.
Yeah, another thing that's interesting is the accident reconstruction experts. The FBI did a accident reconstruction, and they hired people who are nerd, people who reconstruct accidents for vehicular homicides and things like that. But they actually did, for the federal grand jury, they actually did, they looked at the what was on the body and the car, and they did reconstruction. All 3 experts that were paid by the FBI all said that there's no way that this could have happened with the car. And then, since there was an active investigation, they thought that they would share their findings with the defense, who's going to call them as a witness. But the interesting things is they're not whores. It's not like, I'm going to pay you money to say what I want you to say. What's your price? These people were never paid by the defense. These are the FBI's people. So it's going to be interesting, because the judge is not going to allow them to say that, but they should be able to ask them some kind of questions like, when did you hire these people, contract these people to do this? And say, I never did. I never did. And I don't know if they'll be able to say the FBI did, but I'm sure there'll be a few sidebars to get around that one.
No, that will be interesting to see how they navigate that. But I'm with you. I'm sure they'll find a way to get that in there. The fact that we didn't hire you. So they could just say this defense team did not employ you to conduct this study. No, they did not. Now, I don't know if they'll ever say who did, but they can know, like, well, we didn't pay you for this.
Yeah. But so from Turtle Boy and also this other attorney I was listening to last night that they were talking, they seem to think that there's going to be an expert on either, if not tomorrow, it's going to be this week coming up. There's going to be an expert on that's going to say that there's a possibility that Celebrite information could possibly be not accurate. And it's definitely not going to be the person from Celebrite, because why would they say their own stuff doesn't work? I mean, the reason why you would even get this is because it works all the time. But they want to get this other expert that will leave some reasonable doubt to say that maybe that how long to die in cold at 227, maybe that possibly could have never happened and there was maybe some mix up. But the thing that's interesting is if you're saying it didn't happen at this time, you can match up the phone with, say, like the police, the dashboard cam, where you actually see her at the scene and you see this text message and that lines the time up. So if you can line the time up at 6 o'clock in the morning, then it's right at 2:27. You know what I mean?
No, it is, and it's going to be very difficult to break that Celebrite report.
Oh my God, yeah,
It's going to be difficult
because like that alone says, I mean, just based on Jennifer McCabe's testimony that, and she did the 227. She goes, no, I didn't send that, but Celebrite says that she did, and she deleted it. Just that alone, you think would be enough just to say this case is over with, right?
Well, I mean, the jury could believe that the machine could be wrong. We'll see how the defense shows that it's what the likelihood of it being wrong is.
I mean, I want it to keep going. I'm just saying, if I was paying, $15,000 a day to have Alan Jackson, go another day, I'd say, is that enough? But I think they want to keep going and get more information. That way they are going to have a massive, massive lawsuit and a settlement from the Massachusetts State Police, the Canton Police Department, and the list might go on. Michael Proctor personally, it's going to go on and on. They're going to get paid. So I think if I'm Alan Jackson, I'm going to send a bill and say, we're going to collect this one a little later because I'm going to also help you with that settlement. For sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. Hey, let's take a minute. I want to give some props out to our boy Sig Soda. Sig Soda for the I Stand with Dexter Taylor hat. Take 25 seconds to listen to this.
Hi, folks. Joe Lanu here. SigSoda.com has come up with an exclusive hat design to show your support for our friend Dexter Taylor, a.k.a. Carbon Mike. Message me on X to order, and $10 of every purchase goes to the Dexter Taylor Legal Defense Fund. Sig Soda is your source for Pro 2A Amendment gear, official sponsor of the Night Court Show. Let's show Sig Soda some love and some support.
Yeah, got a little plug in there for the Night Court Show, folks. If you don't follow us on X, all my Blue Ring guys in here, Vet and Grizz, John. Actually, everybody in here is a great follow on X. You should give them a follow. But we also do a Night Court Short 9 to 11 Eastern, Monday through Friday. So you should catch our X-Space show. Interesting, varied topics from night to night. We'll talk to Wednesday. We'll talk to an actual U2 pilot that has flown the U2 actually in the 2000s. So this U2 spy plane program, unbeknownst to me, is still actually active and still going. And he's actually flown some modern missions in it. So it should be a great show. I'm done plugging, so we can go back to talking to Karen Reed and your best boy, Turtle Boy.
Yeah, Turtle Boy. Let's hear from Vet. So when you have this guy right here, this is Brian Higgins. This is the ATF agent that was clearly trying to mac on Karen Reed. He definitely did give her a little smooch. He was very happy about that. He did tell his female sergeant that they had this romantic interaction. Apparently, he didn't tell Brian Albert on the 4-hour drive to the funeral there or back, but he did tell that one person. And out of all the records on his phone that were incriminating, and he had to give up something, he thought the messages between him and Karen Reed was he would call his federal and the FBI crime lab, the ATF agent that works in the federal crime lab, for, I'm trying to extract things from my phone. Can you help me? Then he goes to the first floor of a federal building where he's not assigned to any case, and he's on the kiosk extracting just that before he destroys his phone. Super shady. What do you think about the Brian Vet? What do you think about the Brian Higgins testimony? Did you see that one?
Oh yeah, no, I seen the whole thing. I saw how he got real defensive. I seen all that, and then I love how they were like, they was like, well, didn't you get the order not to get rid of your phone and not to get rid of that? And he was just like, he paused for a second, like he knew he was caught, and he was like, oh, like I could see his brain go, oh shit. And no, everything about it was shady. The fact like he wouldn't answer if he broke his SIM card. He said, I can't recall. Like you know, if you switch phones, you know, if you got rid of your SIM card, if you broke it, if you did this, that whole testimony when they got him with his phone and everything is just incriminating right there. And then, yeah, reading the text messages aloud was just the most cringy thing. It made my skin crawl because it was just so high schoolish. And, you know, you're over here talking to this lady, and he kept trying to make it sound like I was just trying to find out what was going on. I really wasn't going to do anything. I was just seeing where she was at and see if she was playing games. Like, no, brother, them text messages show that you were interested and you were just trying to see how far it went.
And you're a piece of shit. You're trying to fuck your girl's boy.
Exactly.
You're a fellow officer. You're trying to mack on his woman behind his back. You're showing a piece of shit, no bro code.
Hey, what you're supposed to do on that is be like, if you get a text message from her saying, "Hey, do you like me?" or what? How I forgot exactly.
Check yes or no.
Yeah, yes or no, or some circle yes, circle no.
Yeah. Right.
You instantly just go, no, don't text me again about something like this. That's my friend, and if you have any kind of interest in me, you know, you guys settle whatever it is, and you come to me later, not right now, and you just end it right there. You just don't even pursue it with the back and forth and the but if you like me, you would do this, or do you like me? I think you're hot, and all this weird stuff.
Yeah, and then they come back from lunch, and he goes, "Well, I deleted the phone information because, unlike most Americans, I don't have kids, so therefore there was no memories. There was just no memories that were worth saving on the phone because I don't have kids." You're like, "Oh, that makes sense, I guess."
Look, you guys are missing the most important part about that. Why did he go and take the text messages that he and Karen read, the most embarrassing text messages yet? Why did he go to the kiosk and have those removed and then delete all the data on his phone?
In his mind, he's so fucking stupid. In his mind, he thought that gave Karen Reed motive to kill John O'Keefe. They were thinking they've had problems with their relationship. Like, why would she back her car into him?
That's not why.
No,
because that's what the state could prove. They knew the defense could come up with her text messages, so they knew that text message occurred. They've got her end of it, so he complies with that and pulls it off.
You're right.
Whose phone got deleted? Who else's phone got deleted?
Michael Albert.
So whose phones do you not have Celebrite for unless they've talked to somebody else you've celebrated, so you have their other end of the text message?
So they're already going to see those text messages anyway, so he can't delete those because
right. And he gave them up and got rid of the phone. You know what you know already is what he gave them.
That's what his friend probably advised them. They're going to get those anyway, so you have to give them those because they're going to have them anyway. It's going to look weird if you don't.
This is about as dirty as it gets with him. That's why that's the most dirtying and damning thing for him, for me, is that I know exactly why he went to the kiosk. I know why he went to that kiosk to get that Celebrite to pull that information off. It's a federal. It's not. It'd be difficult for a state to get a warrant for it, or even to think about that. They wouldn't think about going to the kiosk to get the stuff. You'd think about going to Celebrite at another location. So he goes there and removes just that information off. And whoever did it probably had him set up to when they opened up the phone, they went in there and grabbed their very specific information they wanted, and the Celebrite never downloaded or mirrored the content of the phone in the first place. 100% dirty. 100% something's up with that. Something's up with Albert Sr. I can't prove any more than that, other than there's something up between them two dumping their phones, because they know damn well the communications between them two will never be seen.
Yeah, but it's suspicious timing. I'll tell you, I know someone else wants to comment about that one, but real quick on the Brian Higgins. One of the things that really no one caught, even Turtle Boy just did not catch this. He was asked, okay, you butt dialed Brian Albert, or he butt dialed you, and then you butt dialed him, and then he was talking about, did you answer the phone or did you not answer? Oh, I might have went to voicemail. It says answered. It says answered on the. I mean, how it says answered? What part are we not understanding? But this call was for 22 seconds, and this motherfucker didn't want to admit anything. They're saying, you know, you had a conversation with him for 22 seconds. Well, I wouldn't call it so you can't have a conversation in 22 seconds? No. I wouldn't say you can have a conversation in 22 seconds. But then just like an hour later, he needs to plead the fifth. His attorney is up in front of him, and then he says, "Would you like the second to talk with your client?" He goes, "No, this will only take 10 seconds." And then he talks to him and has a conversation with him. No one pointed that out, but I thought that one was interesting.
That was actually solid. That was solid. Yeah.
He's probably heard that before too.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, does that make sense? What you got, Grizzly Greg? You listening in actively? You got something for that?
Well, I don't have anything on that particular thing, but I agree. I mean,
On Brian Higgins? You got anything on him?
No, I don't really have. Well, he's just dirty as hell. That's just the name. I mean, but I don't really on that particular item. I'm not educated enough on the details of that. I missed all that in the trial. So,
but now you're like hooked, and you're gonna watch tomorrow.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I was gonna say, we talked about this like a week ago before the trial started, right? And the big thing that came. I mean, there was a bunch of things that I thought stunk. But the biggest thing in my mind was that was her taillight, like on a GMC Yukon. You don't just smash one of those, bump it into somebody's beer belly, right? Like if you're going to smash that light, you hit something pretty solid. And so I thought that really stunk. And as it turns out, it is. And it got even more stinky from there because you're telling me that they found the lens pieces on the top of a foot of snow.
But they found them 12 hours later. Like the original police, John, shows up and they didn't find any shoe, any taillight, anything like that. So they grabbed they collected the evidence in red Solo cups like you're using for beer pong, some kind of a Safe Mart paper grocery bag, and they put the 6-pack of cups inside of there. And then they borrowed the neighbor's fucking leaf blower because Brian Albert won't come out of the house. So they have the neighbor's leaf blower and they're blowing around the crime scene by 9 o'clock. So this is at 7. So at 9 o'clock, 2 hours later, they completely abandoned the crime scene. There's nothing secured at the crime scene, nothing. The state police take over 2 hours later at 9. The state police take over. They unsecured the crime scene. And then 12 hours later is when they came back on a hunch and found the taillight, the hat, and the shoe, the missing shoe. They found it 12 hours later. Completely suspect.
Imagine the coincidence there, right? I mean, that's pretty crazy. I gotta give a shout out to you, Kingdom. Like you've got these details down. You take notes on all this shit in the trial, or how are you doing this?
Man, I just
cocaine is how he's keeping up with it all.
No, just I don't have a job in the off season. My job is to get ready for. I have a seasonal business, so when it's the off season, I'll fiddle fart around and like you guys are doing X spaces at night and whatever, and you'll do that kind of stuff. But this one, the case just really got me. Me and Lanu were just playing we were just playing something, and I said, let me take over. Let me just put it on this court TV, and it was just playing this day of it. And then he goes, "Oh, I've heard about that." And then we started talking about it, and then I just got sucked into it, man. And I've just got infatuated. And then I started listening to Turtle Boy. Turtle Boy knows the whole entire story. He's been covering it and interviewing all these witnesses months and months before and following people at football games. He knows all the backstories. He lives in the area. So if you watch just 2 videos of his, you really get up to speed. And then I've been watching his broadcast at the end of every court. He'll do like he's actually in the courtroom also, but he'll do a show and then he'll say, this person said this at this date, and then this document says this, but then look what they say when they're asked the question. See, she says this, but see, later on he'll show the video, but she said that. I mean, he has the whole thing broken down, and then as you're watching this, you're like, oh shit, that's what happened. But sometimes I miss it when I'm actually just watching the testimony, right. But then he breaks it down, and you're like, oh shit, that is what happened. But he's really kind of flattened the curve, but yeah, I have been paying close attention. Thank you for the compliment.
Yeah, I was upset with myself last week because I thought the defense was going to take the floor last week, and I really wanted to be present for all that and tuned into it. And I got busy and I didn't get a chance to, and I was like, damn,
I missed it.
When I tuned into you guys, I'm finding out that I really didn't miss anything, that the best is yet to come, and I'm pretty excited about that. I think it's going to be cool.
I think this week is a shortened court. I think they have it on Monday. I think they have half a day on Tuesday. I think they have no court on Wednesday. They have a half a day of court on Thursday, and then no court on Friday. So I don't think the prosecution will be resting in this week. I think they might go into next week before they actually rest, and then it's the defense's turn. So I don't know. I think some of these witnesses are going to plead the fifth.
Tell me about so we talked about the fact that the prosecution didn't bring in the key investigator, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But and there was they put the kids on the stand. They put O'Keefe's kids on the stand, which seems to me like that's a jury turnoff, unless they have something really relevant to add to the case, which it seems they did not. Right. So what's the purpose? I mean, that just seems like a losing tactic to me for a prosecutor to do something that's emotionally troubling at best to a couple of kids who just lost their father. You're going to drag them through court for no particular purpose. Right?
Well,
are they just trying to obfuscate, like make a mess of things and make it confusing? I can't see any other motive to do that.
Think about this. You're thinking about a guy dying, and the prosecution is saying that Karen Reed, this evil bitch, she just wanted to go have relations with Brian Higgins. She didn't like him. They were arguing at one point, so something like that. So she just backed into him and viciously left him out on the yard. And then you're like, well, there's some things that don't add up, but hold on, just wait right there. It's not just him dying. He was taking care of these two kids. Look at these kids that now don't have their uncle, who was actually their adopted father. Now these two kids don't have a dad because of this evil bitch. And that's kind of, I think, what they were trying to bring it in, is say, not just is John O'Keefe the victim, but these two children also are a victim. And just not really what you're asking them, but you're parading them in front of the jury to say, don't you feel sorry for these kids? Now look at Karen Reed, and that's the reason why they don't have a dad. I think that's what happened. But
they really didn't, from what I understand, from what you said, they really didn't do a very good job of presenting her as that evil bitch.
I mean, what can you ask a kid, though? I mean, I think it's just the fact that you could see them.
Yeah.
Okay. The jury could see them, and you're just like, hey, what'd you have for dinner? What was your homework like? Just seeing the victims, which is really these kids, whoever committed this murder. It's not just O'Keefe died. It's the Boston police officer. It's also these kids are the victim, because now they already lost their mom to cancer and their dad 2 years before that, and then O'Keefe took over, and now he's dead. And now they don't have someone again. And the mom of John O'Keefe, she is convinced that Karen Reed did it, and they're telling the kids, and the kids don't even like Karen Reed because they've done convince these kids that Karen Reed did it, and they haven't given them any of the narrative. So of course they're going to go in there and try to say something to help out, who killed their uncle.
Right.
But the whole thing is it's bullshit. It's smoke and mirrors. I'm sure the jury's seen right through that. It was sad that they drugged those kids up. It's almost like, I wouldn't say child abuse, but it's not a good look to drag them kids in there. Them kids don't need to be in there. They've already been through enough.
That's almost criminal in itself. I will tell you, when I went to court for custody of my son, I should have done it way earlier than I did. I put it off for 3 years, just trying to talk some sense into his mother. And I kept putting it off because I understand the emotional trauma that is for kids, right? And I didn't want him to go through it. Dragging kids into court for the death of, he's an adopted father, he's an uncle, whatever. That's a huge thing, right? Like you said, they've just lost both of their parents, and now also their third parent. That is, those kids are going to be a mess.
And the one thing that no one was able to see, because it's actually on Karen Reed's phone, is there's messages between this niece and nephew, because Karen Reed was the live-in babysitter while John O'Keefe and his boys were partying and stuff. So she has messages on her phone where the kids are texting her saying, "I'm so glad that you came into my life. I couldn't imagine life without you." And she has these text messages and stuff, but it's like when the defense, you don't call that information. You just say, "I'm sorry that you even had to come up here." I mean, the defense could have went over there and questioned the kids and stuff, but why? That's just stupid.
Well, don't you guys think that shows desperation on the prosecution?
Oh,
That if they could prove this without putting those kids on the stand, they would have done so.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all that was.
That was that's why the only thing when I look at it, I just see desperation and that whatever it is they were trying to accomplish, they failed at. And that's why I thought maybe they're just trying to obfuscate things and make everything muddy and just a mess that nothing makes sense. And like that was the only thing that I could find that would be potentially positive outcome of
well
Grizz,
or cast.
Go ahead, Range.
I was going to say, or cast any kind of shade on her character, right? Just to make her look questionable in any way whatsoever. And I think you're right. It's a desperate move, and I think it probably didn't go too well for the prosecution.
Yeah, that might be an understatement.
I think in the prosecution's wargaming on that, they were going to take. That's why they followed the Higgins text messages, because she makes reference in there that she didn't sign on to be a mother and that the kids were a problem. So they were going to continue that down as well. She said the kids were a problem. She had this new love, so she hated O'Keefe enough to back him over. Is what they want you to, the track they're trying to lead you down. But the problem is the testimony was weak. It was weak on Higgins as far as believing almost anything coming out of there, other than he was a dirty rat trying to mac down on the cop's girl. That's what he comes to. All the other cops are going like, man, we had a saying in my department. If he'll F somebody else's wife, he'll F yours. So you don't. We never trusted cheaters, and you damn sure don't go after other cops' girls or wives. But aside from that, I think that's what the prosecution thought, that they had this trail that they could pull this emotional string out so that you looked at her in a negative light, that she didn't want to be around the children. And historically, there are some cases out there. I forget the Smith trial. I think it was North or South Carolina, where she drove her kids off into the water because she had a new boyfriend. So it's not like that's not the model they could try to do. And don't think the prosecutions don't go into trial and they war game that out on how they want the jury to be left. But I don't think it worked for them. I don't think it worked.
Now that I think about it, it might also be, you heard all of this Brian Higgins testimony. Let me bring these kids up here. So hopefully the part you'll remember is how Karen Reed says she didn't sign up to be with these kids. She didn't sign up to be a mom to these kids. And then let's bring the kids over here. So maybe you'll just focus on that and not all the other shit that Brian Higgins said.
No, I think you're 100% right. I think you're kind of saying exactly what I was saying as well. That's what they want you to remember out of that. We got the text messages. We're going to have to bring them up because the defense is going to bring them up anyway. So let's harp on the fact where she said she didn't want to be around. She didn't want to be a mom. Yeah,
the defense is going to bring up. I don't think the defense ever would have brought them kids up there, man. No, 100% no.
Now, you know what? The defense, it'll turn a jury against you. That may have really hurt the prosecution, because a jury will turn on you fast when they think you're doing something like that.
Yeah, that's what.
So what's the
kids?
What's the out here? I mean, you know that you've bitten off a little bit more than you can chew. You know that you got Michael Proctor that's about to come on and plead the fifth. There's no way that he's going to be there's no way he's going to answer questions. The prosecution is not going to bring the lead investigator. The medical examiner did agree with the police officers that it could have been here. It says it's inconclusive, but it also was from hypothermia, but it has a note. It was not from being in a fight. It says it on the thing. It was the medical examiner when she testified on the federal grand jury. It says it on the note, inconclusive. It did die from these damages and hypothermia, but there's a note on it. It did not happen from him getting into a fight. Like, why the fuck would you put that on there unless you were coached to put that on there?
Well, here's the problem. None of that's going to be every bit of evidence in the trial has to have the ability to be cross-examined. They can't use really anything other than a sworn testimony, but that doesn't have a lot of weight to it unless she comes and sits on the witness stand and stands for cross-examination.
No way.
So I'm curious to see if they're going to call her. If they don't call her and they don't call Proctor, then I don't know. The prosecution's waiting for a summary judgment, because I would almost think that the judge would have to give a summary judgment if you don't have the lead investigator that knows the case or the medical examiner to come in and be cross-examined on the way this person died, since you charge him with murder. No one else can testify to that. The ME is the only one. I can, as a police officer, I can go into court and tell you it was a green leafy substance consistent with the odor of marijuana, but I can't tell you it's marijuana, even though I damn know well it is marijuana. But it's going to take a chemist from a lab that conducted the analysis on it to come in and say, yes, it was marijuana, and this is the test that I used, and this is how I come to the conclusion that it was THC, Delta 9, blah, blah, blah. So they have to do that. If they don't put the medical examiner on the stand, I say this case is done.
Explain that summary judgment for me, Joe.
Well, any party could ask the judge for a summary judgment, and if the judge says, I think that the evidence is tilted so far in one direction that the outcome is obvious, then they can give them the judgment right there. So the defense could at any point, and a lot of times you'll see it and it's just denied. They do it for appeal processes, that when the first thing the defense does, the first motion the defense brings when it's the defense case is to file a motion for a summary judgment, and the judge is just as quick as it's asked for, denies it, and they move on into the questioning. But this could give pause if they don't put Proctor up, and they damn sure don't put the medical examiner up there. I don't know how are they going to prove the manner of death if the person that said what the manner of death was doesn't sit on the witness stand so they can be cross-examined.
Well, they did bring the first day or second day, they brought over 3 police officers that were the ones that were initially responded, and they did get their testimony that they found the body and there was damages or whatever. So they did get those guys, but they didn't get the one that you really could cross-examine and get some dirt on, which was Michael Proctor, who planted all the stuff and was found 12 hours later. They didn't get Michael Proctor. Same with when he went to the hospital. They brought on the stand someone who you really couldn't cross-examine because he was just in charge of all the doctors and he really wasn't involved. These are the type of people they're bringing on that you can't, like the kids. You can't even really ask them any questions because they weren't involved. They didn't see anything. They don't really know anything, and you can't really cross-examine them and get them into anything. Brian Higgins, yeah, he sucked, and Brian Alberts, yeah, he was terrible. But the rest of them, they're kind of softball softball witnesses that can say, okay, I was at the crime scene and this did happen, so they can introduce it, but they're not the right person to talk to.
Well, I'll say again, the only person that can testify on how O'Keefe truly died is the medical examiner, the person that has the expertise to be able to make a determination of how someone dies. Mm-hmm. Police officers don't make that determination. Nobody else makes that determination. Go back to my example. I can't sit on a witness stand and say that I know what marijuana is and what I found was marijuana. I have to testify that it was a green leafy substance consistent with the color and texture of marijuana. The chemist that I send it to for the lab, the analysis, that's the person that gets up and says for sure. If I go to a drug case and I get up there and say it was a green leafy substance, there's no statute against having a green leafy substance, even whether it's consistent in the odor of marijuana or not. The offense is having the actual marijuana in it tested and proven that it is so. So now take that to a body. You can't have a murder if you can't say it's homicide or homicide, and that it was unlawful homicide, unjustified homicide. The police officers can't say how that man died. He's just likely been hit by a car, has been by someone else, or been in a fight. They won't be able to tell you either way. So that's my point. If that medical examiner doesn't testify, I don't know how the judge would not give a summary judgment. One of the elements is you have to prove that the person died at the hands or the results of another's actions.
But the medical examiner said that he died from hypothermia and...
Medical examiner hasn't said anything in court that can be cross-examined. Everything you're hearing there is from somewhere else.
Now, different hearing. Yeah.
And at grand jury. Now, the grand jury testimony, it can only go, I don't know that you can even read it in court, because there's a rule. If in order for it to be evidence, it has to be cross-examined. Watch when they put something into evidence. I would like to enter this into evidence. And if the defense and prosecution agree, then it'll go. If the defense has an objection to it, they hear the objection prior to it being evidence, but they can't introduce it and let the jury hear it until the judge says this is evidence.
Right.
Everything must be cross-examined. They get the chance to look at it before they put it in. That's why every witness, you have a direct examination, and then you have a cross-examination. That's your constitutional right for your attorney to cross-examine every witness against you.
But
Right.
they have brought that federal grand jury testimony. Like, for example, in Brian Higgins, they were like, well, didn't you testify at another hearing that you seen a person that was tall, that had brown hair? You didn't get a good look at him, but you seen him enter the house. Didn't you testify that in another hearing? And then they brought the paper up there and they said, is this okay? They have presented testimony from that federal grand jury several times already.
Now, and well, they're allowed to do it, but look at the scope. They're not talking. Higgins is not commenting on somebody else's grand jury testimony. He's talking about his own.
Right.
And
himself.
Well, exactly. But when the medical examiner gets up there, they can also pull that out. You can't change the story now because we locked you into one when you were under oath saying it whenever it is you said with it. And you got to remember too, there was also a state grand jury that I'm sure the medical examiner testified in the state grand jury for sure. That's how we got here. It had to have a state grand jury to indict. So
now, if
there's no way around the medical examiner getting up and telling how this guy died.
So, but you know that some of these witnesses, even if you don't call them, the defense is going to call them. So do you just not call them and have the defense say, there's a reason why they didn't call him, I'm about to show you? Or do you just go ahead and call Michael Proctor because you know the defense is anyway, or you don't call? Because it looks like they're not going to call him because they should have already done it.
I think there's two courses of action there for prosecution in this situation. One is you let them get them up and you try to use your best litigation skills and reduce their testimony down to dirt. Try to just bash them, treat them like you would a defense witness, and try to impeach their testimony. Or the other one is this guy may be at home right now on his knees, lolly, praying that the judge gives a summary judgment and they can just end this damn thing right there. And he say, hey, man, I did my best, but the witnesses just sucked. I think that's only two categories they can go in. Yeah.
How do you exit from this? How do you exit from this before it gets any worse?
If I was the prosecution, I would have never brought the case. I would have taken a look at the bullshit that I had to deal with, and I wouldn't argue that in front of a jury.
They had to think she's gonna get the plea deal, or just if she would plea out, or I mean, because I know Michael Proctor, he had a text message that he was texting his friend Brian Albert. I wish you would just die.
So apparently,
now remember the state can dismiss this case tomorrow. They can dismiss it at any time.
Do you think, Joe, that they brought the case only because of public pressure? Had two grand juries. That clearly says to me that the prosecution the prosecutor doesn't want to take ownership of prosecuting this case. They're going to say the only reason that this is in court is because the grand juries decided, that there was sufficient evidence. So they're trying to take that, put that burden on somebody else, take that off their shoulders.
You know what, Grizz? I don't know. I know there's a lot of uproar about police corruption. This Canton Police Department's got a lot more than this going on. There's missing narcotics, controlled substances out of their evidence room. There's missing firearms. The entire police department quit with the exception of one person. The local county had to pick up service, and I think they've only got 2 officers working back now, or as of just a few weeks ago. So there's a lot of other issues. There was a public vote, evidently in Massachusetts or in this township. You can vote to have your government audited, and they voted to have the police department audited. How many chiefs has there been since this incident? 2?
Yeah, there's been one. There was one chief, and then he retired like a couple of days after, and then the other one, he's also retired. And then one of the person that was in the house was a fire chief's daughter was in the house, and he's also retired. But they had someone from the fire department made up a story that was also some lady that worked in the fire department was in the house, which was the guy's daughter, and she also lied on the stand. I think this whole thing is the defense of Brian Albert. This is to say this whole trial right here, the reason why they went forward is just to put some evidence to prove that Brian Albert didn't do it. I think that's what this whole thing is about.
You know what it could be? But to really answer your question, Chris, is I don't know. They know they've got a compromised department. There's plenty of other evidence outside this case, and they've got to know that this is a weak case. They have to. I don't know why the prosecution honestly is particular. Now, that's a good point, Kingdom. It could be to maybe they're so dirty there to protect their own that they would go through all this and jeopardize a woman they know is innocent, her freedom. Either way, it's not the way our government should be. I don't want to be subjected to it. I don't want my local government treating me that way.
That's right.
There's going to be 2 doctors from the medical examiner's office that are still to testify.
Where'd you read that at?
It's on one of the news articles.
That's still left to testify tomorrow, maybe?
Well, they're saying that there's going to be 2 doctors from the medical examiner's office and 12 law enforcement officers that are on the list to testify this week.
They're calling all the people that there's not going to be Michael Proctor, I guarantee it.
All right.
You delete the 4 minutes of when Karen Reed's car drives by the library. You delete that. You lie that what time you actually got her car before anyone can even look at it to see that the taillight wasn't even cracked or anything like that. You grab her car, you bring it to the Sally Port. You have the key card for Brian Higgins that's in the Sally Port, and in the police station, the hour that the car was in the Sally Port when they had it is completely gone, and that's deleted. I mean, it's like there's a mountain of stuff that doesn't make sense. They clearly got them in a lie, but they're trying to just protect their ass. And I wouldn't see it going all the way to the defense. They're just going to give up and quit, and someone's going to plead the fifth if they make it up there. But you think they would stop the trial before that happens?
I don't think so.
Well, now, what did you? Our court TV correspondent, he thinks that it's a close trial, that the state's done a decent job at proving their case. What's his name?
Yeah, he's a freaking idiot. Vinny something or other. Yeah, I mean, I think if you're like a real judge like Joe Lanou is, I mean, you don't really want to take the side of one person or another on court TV. I think court TV's position is to stay non-biased and really not have an opinion. They're just showing you the court case without saying, I think she's guilty. I mean, they're trying to keep it non-biased, but it's very difficult for this guy to continue to take that stance when there's so much, evidence. Even all the news and all the newspapers and all the kind of media that's in Boston, all of them are saying that they all agree that there's a police cover-up, but there is a pocket of maybe about 20 people that are still in the Brian Albert's camp that's all saying, oh, the prosecution's doing a great job. This case is doing good. She did it 100%. Everything's leading to that. And that she's going to be guilty. But that's a small group of people who think that. But there is some people who are related to him in some way that still do say that, claim that. His name is Vinny Politan is the guy's name. That's the guy that's on court TV every night.
Yeah, I tell you what really got me was the Jennifer McCabe testimony when she said that, well, I didn't do a Google search at 2:27 a.m. I'm like, what? There's no way. No way you're trying to dispute telephone records.
Yeah, why would you lie about something that's so easily, debunked? Like,
because what else can you do? Because if you
the Apple Watch, O'Keefe's Apple Watch matches.
It actually was. I said Apple Watch. It was actually his phone, where the phone you can tell it goes up the stairs. It wasn't an Apple Watch. It was actually his phone. Yeah.
Okay.
But she actually called the phone like 6 times when the defense is saying that they got the body and she's in the body's that O'Keefe's dead or dying at that point. When they put him outside, he's still alive. But they're trying to find out where the hell his phone was, and that's why she called it 4 times to find out where it was.
Why do we have the notion that he died in the house and then they took him outside? Why couldn't the fight have happened outside and he just, whatever, maybe he got pushed and smacked his head or whatever? Why do we have that idea that it happened, that the actual fight happened inside?
She dropped him off at the party to go in there, and they were most everyone that's in the house except for the kids were at the party before at the Waterfall Bar, and the other one whatever it was. So they were all there and they all left and went to the house. Karen Reed drops them off, and the person who was behind her, seeing that she dropped him off and he went inside the house. But they're all trying to say he didn't go in the house. There's no way that he went in the house, when clearly he went in the house and his phone was going up and down the stairs and everything. And there was no body at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning. The body didn't show up until 4 o'clock in the morning. So if she ran into him, why did 7 people testify that they didn't see a body out there until 6 o'clock in the morning? No one's seen a body out there because it wasn't there. She never ran into him. But they're just trying to make the biggest case. He never went into the house. He never went into the house. She ran into him, but clearly he was in the house and he was brought out because he wasn't on the yard until about 4:30.
Yeah.
If you're the Alberts, as long as you can keep him out of your house, you're good to go.
Yeah.
He gets in your house, everything falls apart. So that's why they've got the stone wall up. He never went in the house. Absolutely never was in the house whatsoever. Never saw him. If they never saw him, they had nothing to do with his death, whether Karen Reed's convicted or not.
I wish I did.
Right. But
I wish I did see him.
I wish I did. I wish he did come inside the house.
Wasn't there something mentioned about they cleaned up in the basement?
oh, what's that?
Yeah. So basically the dog. So we'll talk about the dog first. The dog, the German Shepherd, Brian Albert already testified that he was aggressive with strangers. He also testified that the dog was sleeping at the foot of the bed and that the dog never kind of woke up when all the police and everything was out front. So about a month later, there was a neighbor that was walking down the street, 2 ladies and a dog. The German Shepherd gets out of the house, kills the other dog, and sends the other 2 ladies to the hospital.
Oh my God.
After that, they've permanently got rid of the dog. So this is like a month later. But the 2 ladies are also going to testify. The defense are going to call those 2 ladies up that were attacked by the dog and they sent them to the hospital. But that's that. And then the other one was, as soon as they said that you can't delete any evidence or anything like that, not only did they get rid of their phones, within a week later, they've redid the basement floor and refloored the basement floor. The brother, another Albert, decided to fill his pool in. I'm sure there's a lot of incriminating evidence in that, whatever they filled the pool in, but I'm sure it's part of the basement floor. But they redid the floor, and then he sold the family house that had been in the family, the Alberts family, for generations, 50 years. They decided to sell the house quickly, $50,000 below market value, and just took a deal and sold the house to someone else so they could never go in there and search it.
Yeah. So this whole thing stunk a week ago before when we first talked about it, before the trial started, and it's gotten substantially stinkier since then.
Yeah. How's it smell now, Grizz?
Pretty nasty.
Bet, are you still listening, Doc?
Does it smell like a dead dog?
Smells like a dead carcass in a bear den.
Yeah. I mean, and another thing that was incriminating is Jennifer McCabe. So they finally, she's with Karen Reed, and then they're like, they're looking like, is he on this street? Is he on that street? Like, damn, let's buy time. They pull up to see the body. She's like, oh my God, that's John. They're like actively looking for a dead body, but she doesn't see the dead body. They're in the front seat. Karen Reed's in the back seat. Oh my God, he's there. So she's like giving him CPR, and Jennifer McCabe, she calls Brian Albert for like 5 seconds. Is like, Karen's outside, don't come outside, and so said they have that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
no, I just wanted to say, yeah, in this market, of course you want to sell your house for $50,000 less, because the economy's fantastic, and there's nothing going on like inflation or anything like that. Why would I want to get the maximum amount for my house that's been in my family for generations? No, of course. And then
grandma will
mysteriously
mind.
redo my whole basement.
Yeah.
How long? All of a sudden the pool's filled up. Yeah, that's normal.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they the chief of police of Canton Police contacted Twitter, which is now X, and they sent something to remove a tweet that was on X saying that there was a body found on the front yard of Brian Albert's house. They sent that to have Twitter remove that because he's an upstanding citizen in the community. And so she sold the house. I think if you waited till later, like trying to sell the house now, you would have to disclose the fact that there was a body, there was a murder inside the house. So get rid of the house before you have to disclose that.
Yeah. What was the address again?
It's 38 Fairview Avenue in
38 or 34?
34, excuse me, 34.
Kingdom, you know an awful lot about the exacts. Where were you in this time of question?
He knows where the dog is.
Yeah. Yeah, fucking dog. No, I just been studying it, and I just been looking at it, and I've been following it, and then I just sit
cuddling
there and
with Turtle Boy.
I just been taking notes, and I've been looking at it like I do when I'm just trying to break something down. I mean, this is how I read the Bible, and I just try to break down all the stuff and see what connects. And this is what I'm doing with this one. I've been diving deep into it, and all the stuff that they're showing in the prosecution, and then the aftermath of when Turtle Boy is kind of breaking down his opinion. I'm looking at all these different angles and adding up all this evidence, and he's 100% right. Many people who think that she didn't do it is right. And but it's interesting now that you know that the police officers framed it up. It's just comical almost to hear their testimony and hear them try to lie their way out of it.
I think you're
so I'm looking at the sales record. So in October of 2010, it sold for $500,000. November of 22, it was listed for $950,000.
Yeah, double.
Yeah.
Now it's $1 million house. They sold for $500,000.
Yeah, and that February
Roughly.
17th of 23, pending sale $949, and then April of 23, it sold for $905.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe too deep. You're right about that.
Wow.
Folks, Kingdom and I have talked about this.
Dead wood.
Go ahead, Chris.
I said that smells like a dead woodshed.
Yeah.
No woodshed is on the property, just a filled-in pool.
No, the filled-in pool is not at Brian Albert's house. It's at Brian Albert's brother's house.
Yeah.
Sorry. Who was also in the attendance of the party that night, I believe. He was one of the 12.
I don't know if he was there at the party, but I know that he's the only person in the family, in the Albert family, that's not a politician, that's not a law enforcement, that's not somebody that's a state speaker or something important. He's just the person that doesn't add any value. He's pretty much the loser of the family, but he likes to, take advantage of the family's connection. And then as soon as that preservation order came out, he posted something on Facebook to the tune of "You don't fuck with my family, or else you're gonna pay." He posted on his Facebook, and then all of a sudden, like 2 weeks later, he's filling his pool in October. It's like, okay, sounds good. The whole thing is fishy.
Got to get that grass. It's the Northeast. You got to get that grass where the spring comes, so your lawn.
Yeah, in October, it's snow season.
Well, and this is something that Kingdom and I have talked about is, folks, you're not going to find a real trial that is a cliffhanger like this one, or that is being presented like this. This is literally Perry Mason stuff. This is rare. So if you have the opportunity to tune in, you should listen to some of this testimony. You should, if you can't get with us, we're going to try to keep everybody up to date with it. But I'm telling you, this just doesn't. I've been to a lot of trials in my time. I've testified in many, many, many of them, and I've witnessed even more than I've testified in. So I'm just telling you that 9 out of 10 times, almost 10 out of 10 times, 9.9 point something out of the times, every question asked in that courtroom is not a surprise to anyone but the jury. You're just saying it so the jury can hear it. Everything else has already been worked out. That's not the case in this one. You just don't know how this is going to flip and turn. It's pretty amazing.
The whole medical professionals and stuff like that are testifying, that shit's boring. And the prosecutor, he is super, super boring. So he kind of met his match, like when he's interviewing these blood experts and stuff. It's like, oh my God, today's not a fun day. The Brian Higgins day was fun, but this day's not fun. Not fun at all. But hopefully they start getting to some meat and potatoes, or when the defense finally call either the medical examiner, or when they finally get Michael Proctor, the lead investigator, when they finally get him on the stand, that's when it's going to be sparks. But I think he's going to plead the fifth.
It sounds like if they have 12 cops on the docket for the next couple of days, they're just asking each one of them a couple quick questions to kind of solidify and reestablish a point that they've already made, right? They're going to get up there, they're going to say, this is your name, blah, blah, blah. And they're going to say, there was a crime at this address. And basically that's going to be it. Like, they're going to blow through a couple quick questions and they're going to say, that's all, no cross-examination. They're going to bring up the next guy, right? If you got 12 cops on the docket for that short period of time, they're going to be quick testimonies.
It's probably going to one of these names, and these people that are named in white, looks like there's 12 of them. The ones that are in white are the ones that really can't add anything of value. They're going to be the ones who are called. The ones that are in pink are the ones that you really don't want to call, but they can really add a lot to what happened. You might see some of them. You will not see the first person, Michael Proctor, but you'll probably see some of these other police officers that are listed in this list right here.
And I would say the prosecution's at least got one cleaner, somebody that they can put on the stand and try to go back and reinforce or push a narrative that is beneficial for the state is one of their last or second to last witnesses. So I don't know which one that would be.
But I tell you something that's amazing, though. I will give this for the prosecution. For all the people involved, not one person has cracked. Not one person has said, I'm sorry. What really happened was he was in the house and he got murdered. They told me to lie about. Not one person has cracked. That part's weird.
They're in too deep for that. If they do that now, then it's a conspiracy and they're all screwed.
Well, and that's the thing about it. If everybody holds up, they may be denigrated in the community, beat up in the media, but they may never be convicted. And I've said this before, is that one of the real shames of this is that she's not convicted, then that means the killer is still out there. And I don't think the police have preserved a case well enough to be able to put anybody in prison for John O'Keefe's death.
Yeah.
Intentionally, it sounds like. It sounds like that was exactly the intention.
So I'm gonna go out on a limb here, Joe. Could they do a FISA warrant while this is going on and tap into these phone calls to see if anybody's talking?
They could if they could just subpoena the phone records. You send a preservation letter to all their carriers and internet service providers to preserve records, and then you file a subpoena and they give those records. You can tell if they're talking.
But you would need a judge to sign off on that, right?
Yeah, but it's not a FISA warrant. It's just a simple subpoena, actually. It's not even actually, I think the DA can sign off on it. In Texas, the DA can sign off on a subpoena or a county clerk.
What would be interesting? It sounds like the prosecutor isn't real sharp, like you said. And to be fair, like he probably doesn't, if these are all his buddies that are in this, and he has an inkling even that it is dirty, he really doesn't want to solve the case. But if he did, and Karen Reed's acquitted, I would want to tear up that concrete floor in the basement, and I'd want to tear up that pool that was filled in. I would want to find out what's in there.
What would you find? Your DNA evidence would be destroyed, or at least contaminated to the point that you couldn't trust it.
There's going to be blood on that concrete.
Maybe the lime in the concrete does destroy DNA evidence. I don't know, Joe. You would know more about that than me. But there's
bleach is a good bleach to destroy DNA well enough, but it degrades over time. It decomposes over time. So it's because it's a biological substance. So there becomes a point where just the elements will degrade it to the point where you can't get anything off its trace amounts in the first place.
Unless it's hair, maybe not. Hair wouldn't degrade over.
You would have to go through that filled-in pool like you were digging for dinosaur fossils and have to brush every little thing.
You're gonna have to comb through the dog hair.
You're gonna have to have a sieve that's large enough for the dirt to fall through, but not a human hair. I think that it's less likely that you're going to see that type of investigation. I think the time has passed for the real evidence that you would need to get if, in fact, he was killed inside that house.
Right.
But there could be fabric or something. Maybe they could find somewhere in the middle of that pile of dirt or something. There could be something there, but most.
Well, you know what? I hope they go bust all that up so they can just satisfy all your guys' emotions and what you hope might be there.
Me too.
if you've never seen a concrete demo in range, I know you have, demoing a concrete floor, wheeling it out in wheelbarrows, and then go take it and dump it into a pool and put more dirt on top of it.
Yeah.
You want the job of going and finding something inside that?
Hell no.
No.
I'm gonna hire some cracked out weirdo to do it.
The Google geo data that has every single person's phone that you can, the prosecution has blocked this, but if you have every single person's phone and you prove that Colin Albert was in that house all night and everyone's testimony said he wasn't there, but if you prove he was in that house and who was in the house and who went where and what time they left, and you might be able to see the whole story, you don't have all those people's phones. But if you do find out the whole story and you do prove that he was in the house, then I think that's definitely grounds to say someone in that house did it, and you kind of keep going further. I mean, maybe, you know, I don't know if that's enough to prosecute, but definitely maybe perjury. But unfortunately, I don't think there's going to be any justice for John O'Keefe.
That's a really interesting angle. Like if I'm the defense and I'm trying to blow this thing apart, I take like a dollhouse, one of those great big dollhouses, and I put it in the courtroom and just go through it step by step. Here's all the players, right? And you move the pieces around based on that cell phone data. That would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, the people who they swore up and down weren't there.
Right.
I mean, even like a neighbor who lives 5 houses down, when this person said he left and he was driving a Jeep with a plow, you get a ring camera from someone's house that lives 5 houses down where he left and see him leaving in the Jeep and coming back. They didn't subpoena anybody's ring camera because they already know damn well he wasn't driving that Jeep.
Right.
But that kind of stuff, they're not trying to prove that Brian Albert did it. They're trying to prove Karen Reed did it. So that's the reason why they haven't asked for that stuff. And now it's been 2 years that's passed. I mean, a lot of that evidence is gone.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if rings, I don't know all the, behind the scenes of what you can get, but it seems like a lot of it's gone already.
Well, I think if it's not gone, if they were so thorough to get rid of their phones and they know everybody in that area, it would have to be taken care of. And it's going to take somebody in the conspiracy that knew what happened there that night. It could be as many as 12, I guess, or more at the house that knew this took place to break it and talk. Vet had actually a very good idea. And if I was on the prosecution, if I was going after it, I would try them. He's right. The people that don't have as strong of a bond to the other members in the group, that you can get separated and get them to start talking. But right now we stand together, however it goes, we stand together or we surely hang.
Together we stand, together we fall.
Nah, something about if we don't, we'll surely hang. In other words,
we all stand together or we'll hang separately.
There you go. That's where they're at right now, and evidently everybody's sticking to it. If something did happen in the house.
But then again, the prosecution is only calling people who they know that the stories are sticking together. The defense is going to call some people that don't have that same story, and they're not sticking together.
100%. And what makes it good is that one of them's your lead investigator that the state didn't call. That's just, that guy's going to, well, in the jury's mind, that guy's going to have some clout, I think, because they're going to be more, well, why would you do that? Well, exactly. I think that guy's going to have some clout, and if he doesn't purport well, they don't think he's telling the truth. I think it falls apart from there, no matter what the state kids put on or whatever else they say. It would have to fall apart from there. And what's the whole thing about the cell phone, Karen Reed's cell phone, and this lead prosecutor or this lead investigator from the state, Proctor? Wasn't he going through her phone prior to a warrant and looking for nudes and sending them out?
Yeah. So Michael Proctor, he went over there and interviewed, informal, not an official interview, documented, where you write down the statements and stuff like that. He just went over there and just, verbal interview, unofficial, off the record interview with Karen Reed. And Karen was very forthcoming and willing to offer any kind of participate in any way at Karen Reed's mom's house. So she offered her phone. So he's Michael Proctor, the lead investigator that now has possession of the phone. He's sitting here texting his buddies, hey, I got her phone. I'm looking through it right now for some nudes, and nude pictures. And then I haven't seen them, but allegedly he sent the nude pictures to his friends that he extracted off the phone. It's like, that's weird. I mean, I don't know, Fourth Amendment, and also there was attorney-client privilege on her phone that the lead investigator now has access to. So there's a couple little things there, but she did offer the phone. I'm not sure how far that goes.
I mean, if you can prove it, maybe it's fruits of a poisonous tree. That may be why we really haven't seen anything from her phone as far as the state is put on.
No, they're not going to mention a damn thing about that.
Well, it could be. They know if they use it, then the fruits of a poisonous tree pop up, and everything that goes down that road gets eliminated. You can't search someone's phone without a warrant.
You can't make this shit.
Even if they offer it to you.
That's
well, no, they can give you consent, I guess. But did he get consent? I guess. Well, I guess it would be blocked. No, giving the phone doesn't necessarily mean you can look in it. I don't know. I don't know the details behind that, but yeah, it could be consent, I guess.
Yeah.
Giving him consent to look at the phone for stuff that might be relevant to the case is an entirely different matter than going through my nude pictures and sending them to your buddies.
Yeah, no shit. That definitely makes him look like he's fucking, a piece of shit for sure.
And here's another thing about consent. Consent, you've got to be there because you can withdraw that consent at any time. There's been some case law about people being handcuffed and put in the back of a car for a consensual search of their vehicle, so that the police officers couldn't say if they, hey, I changed my mind and stopped, because you have the right to stop it at any time. So if he took the phone away, I don't know that could be considered consent. I think you need a warrant. If I was him, I would get a warrant
before you start looking through the phone.
Absolutely, get a warrant. Then there's no questions. If I don't get a warrant, then it's actually something the state has to prove when they go to court, is that I had the ability to do that, like in any consensual search. That's why police officers like to get you to sign it and you have it on videotape, because you really can't challenge that you gave your consent at that point.
Yeah, at 3:30 in the afternoon, he calls for the tow truck to get her car, because no one had went over there yet and seen that the taillights, just a little crack in it when she backed into O'Keefe's Traverse at his house when she was looking for him. And then so they towed it like at 4 o'clock, but he said, no, that didn't happen till 5, because if that happened at 5, then there's no way that he could have also been at there's no way that he also could have been planting the taillight pieces on the crime scene. So there was just no way it could have happened if the car was picked up at 5. But in fact, there was an hour missing. He lied about it, which they've proven 2 different ways about the ring camera footage that at Karen Reed's mom's house, that he lied and they got it an hour earlier, which gave him time to drive 15 minutes down the road and plant that. It's kind of like the OJ case, but that was just some shitty police work, but he was guilty. But they got off on some, kind of technicalities. But this one, it's so obvious that they covered it up, and it just wasn't one. It's like 10 people trying to cover it up. And just saying that forensic science is just all bullshit. Just believe my story. I'm more credible than all this forensic science bullshit. So that part's just so hard to believe.
It's even worse than that. It's like saying, forget common sense. Forget like thinking for yourself and critical thinking and putting together all the pieces that don't make any sense. My story is accurate. That's what he's saying. And in the world that we're living in today, you would have to be an idiot to subscribe to that, right?
Well, guys, it might be genius if she's acquitted of this crime. I don't know that they could ever go back. As much as you feel dirty about Albert, okay, and Colin, all these actors we've named, where are you going to get evidence to show that anybody did absolutely? You can prove who did what. You can make a lot of assumptions, but that's not going to get you back into court. I think that the worst they could get is fired, but I don't think they go to prison. I think all of them know if they stick together, they don't go to prison for murder.
I agree. Yeah, you're right. They got to get somebody to flip, and then they've got to get some kind of physical evidence to corroborate that story as well.
I think once you prove that John O'Keefe was actually in the house and every single person said he wasn't, you're going to probably get some perjury. But then again, like Brian Higgins was like, well, I did say in the federal grand jury that I seen someone that was tall and had dark hair, but I didn't get a good look at him. I may or may not have seen somebody, but he definitely did under federal grand jury, which is the penalty is even stronger for perjury, which he knows that as an ATF agent. He did lay out the possibility just in case anyone can prove that he was in there. He did make a mention of something like that. So he did cover his ass a little bit on a few things, like not just that, but a few other things. So they did kind of cover their tracks just in case they're painted in the corner. Same with Brian Albert, as far as was this young punk that just wants to get into a fight all the time. Was he in the house? No. Well, you said he left. Did you see him leave? No. Well, he was in the basement. Did you go search the house to see if he was gone? No. So they did kind of leave the breadcrumb trails there, that if they're ever proven that, they were lying, they did, they kind of left it a little vague enough to explain their way out of that one too.
But you might fire them. You may convict them in the media, but you're not going to convict them in a court of law. They've left reasonable doubt breadcrumbs all over the place.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's really the defense of the police officers that were in the house and those people. That's what this case is about, to prove them. And the FBI, knowing that she didn't do it and it wasn't from this car that she's on murder, it's interesting that they don't come out there and say, come on, guys, you can't go to trial on this one. I mean, as soon as it gets to the defense, this is going to be all blown up. You should just stop this. I know she's innocent, but the FBI I'm not sure, they don't need to explain themselves or whatever, but they know that she didn't do it. Their experts proved that she didn't do it, which will be called with the defense. But it's kind of interesting that they didn't stop it or haven't yet.
Well, they've got the results of the federal grand jury are still sealed. They're letting some of this out for for justice, but they haven't released the entire report for the federal grand jury.
They want to wait until the criminal trial's over.
Right. And the AUSA that convened the grand jury says that they don't make comments on this one way or the other.
On active investigations.
Active investigations. So it indicates that the feds are still looking into it. But
so this is really gonna, like, the drama just builds even after the verdict comes in.
Oh yeah,
because then you're going to want to wait and see what the grand jury had to say.
And then you're going to figure out how they go again. And then there's going to be a civil trial where they go against Massachusetts State Police. And then there's going to be more testimony that's contradicting. This is far from over. This story is going to continue to keep growing. But when it gets to the defense taking the stand and hearing the witnesses they call, I mean, it's going to get good.
Yeah, folks, y'all need to tune in to We the People Live. We're going to be carrying it live, doing some commentary with it. But we'll keep you up with it. Probably do a wrap show every couple of days after some of the testimony. But when the defense sits down, get your popcorn, whether you're watching it live or you're watching a rerun on it, but get your popcorn and get settled in. It's going to be one of the better movies this year.
That's
In fact, I don't know that Hollywood could write this one. They would screw it up.
They would. And don't just get your popcorn, get the big bag too.
Yeah, extra butter. I mean, this is it. I mean, this is like go to this like you went to the first Star Wars.
No shit, man. You almost want to pay for a ticket. And the thing is that the courtroom's so small, you can only fit like 50 people in there. They have a courtroom right next to it that you can fit 100 people in, but they're operating out of this really small courtroom. It's like, I don't know, like the amount of people that are going to be outside of this courtroom and the commotion that's going to be happening on the day that the actual verdict is read. Man, it's going to be epic. I bet you it's going to be like the quickest verdict to ever come back in the history ever.
But you folks don't worry. We will have a camera in the room. We will watch it all live. The court's actually done a real good job on this one.
Yeah,
we haven't missed anything that has been up. If they're in session, the camera's going. They did block the camera for the minor's testimony. We assume it was the niece and nephew, but I think that even hasn't been confirmed 100%. But either way, underage witnesses. But they've been very good. Audio's been good. We've been able to track this all the way through. So and we can start doing replays at night for anybody that's interested in it. But
it's available. It's available. It's definitely available on Amazon, Spotify, whatever we record the next day, that night, it's available on all those streaming platforms. The video is also, you can rewatch the live videos that we did on X. You can also watch them on YouTube. You can watch them anywhere. So whatever we broadcasted from the trial, you can fast forward. It's also on Court TV. It's on NBC. It's on ABC. It's on all the local Boston channels. It's on Law and Order TV. I mean, it's like 6 different streams that are.
Well, let's don't be misleading, Kingdom. You don't get our colorful commentary and knowledgeable commentary on any other channel but We the People Live.
No, 100%. But what I'm saying is you can catch up with it. It's plenty of places, but we're chopping it up. And then when they're on break, we're going to commentary or showing other things that, you know, we're really putting together a show, not just at court TV. And then all of a sudden when they're at break, you're just watching a ceiling fan go around for 30 minutes. We're actually putting in content in the breaks and cutting in and giving some commentary as they're going through it live. So it's definitely, it's fun to be a part of it. And it's should be definitely fun to watch and participate as well. And as Phil the Assyrian,
that ceiling fan is awesome.
I know. Yeah, I know.
It's also worth noting that no other network other than We the People Live has an exclusive contract with the Grizzly Bears. So that's that.
That's true. Yeah. And my buddy in the Christmas business was like, "Who's this Grizzly Bear guy with the grizzly?" I was like, "It's a long story. It's a long
How
story."
about that?
He's a Christmas light enthusiast. You know, just it's a long story. Yeah, it's protect his identity. It's my customer.
Grumpy Grizz. Grumpy Grizz is a co-host for the Night Court with Joe Lanews show. So is Vet and John.
Yeah, and we do have Vet back. What's up, Vet?
Grumpy Grizz. What's up with that?
Grizz, you grumpy. I mean, I'm calling balls and strikes here, my friend. I mean, I'm not trying to hurt nobody's feelings. I'm just saying you look grumpy about things.
I am. Ruffle my feathers. Bears are that way. It's not.
Oh, so yeah, John, Vet, Range. Y'all gonna just go chuckle about that? You're not gonna back a brother up about Grizz being grumpy?
You'll leave
I've seen Mean Bears. I ain't getting in the middle of that.
He has his moments.
Well, the last time I told another dude with a bear avatar that I wasn't gonna pet a black bear, it got Western real fast.
See that? So I'm not so grumpy on a relative basis.
No, but your cousin, he's a little worse than you, but you're still grumpy.
Yeah, but we're definitely going to have a great show tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. I know my wife is not looking forward to me spending all day at the computer again, watching this and everything, but I am.
And
it's
I thought she was joining us.
That's on Friday for the police shooting. She'll be there, but yeah, during the day she's homeschooling the kids and taking care of things while I'm sitting here pretending to be a podcast person. So that's why I'm really studying just that way. If she asks me a question, I'm like, "Hey, babe, you ain't gonna believe this shit. So this happened and this happened." So she's very up to date on what's going on as well.
I tell you what, Phil's trying to fan the fire here. That's exactly what it got into. Black bears are nice. Yeah, black bears kill a lot of people in the United States each year.
Yeah, Kingdom's a jack of all trades. Check them out. Thanks, Phil.
Oh, Phyllis.
It's good that Phil's on his medication. He's dishing out compliments tonight. When he's not on his medication, you can tell.
Yeah, he's ready for some insurance supplements for tomorrow.
Yeah. I bet he's getting beat up with insurance claims.
Oh my God, all those tornadoes and the bad weather that's been happening in the North Texas area. I'm sure he's pretty busy working in the office. So yeah, definitely Phil needs to be listening from the office. Yeah, we have a nice FT. It's not FT French. It's actually F Texas.
Got him 5 claims today.
Damn.
Yep.
5
Texas
claims
style.
a day. Yeah. So I do have the Turtle Boy summary of what's going on. It's called Framed. As soon as we're done here, I'll play it immediately following on this feed before I turn it off. And this feed will be rebroadcasted tomorrow before the trial starts, which is at 8:00 our time. I think it's 9:00. Am I right?
Yeah, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central, and you can do the math on it all the way back to the East Coast or West Coast.
Yeah, so I'll be playing this right here. What we're saying right now will be right before the trial starts, and then we'll be jumping in at 8:00 Central Standard in Texas. And but yeah, I do have that one. If we have anything left to say, I'm satisfied that we covered a lot here. And I'm looking forward to it. How about that?
Yeah, with that, do we know who the state is calling tomorrow, or is it going to be a surprise at 9 a.m.? Or 8 a.m.?
I couldn't find a witness list for tomorrow.
Okay, yeah. I guess we'll find out. Either way, it's going to be interesting.
For sure, dude. For sure.
Hey, folks, thanks for joining us tonight. Catch us tomorrow on the live stream for the Karen Reed trial for sure, but also give myself and my co-host Briz, Vet LT, and John C. Give us all a good follow in here, but catch our night court tomorrow, 9 to 11 Eastern. We do it 5 nights a week. Thanks, guys.
And enjoy this video I'm about to play.
Daily News. I've been investigating the death of John O'Keefe from Canton, Massachusetts. His girlfriend, Karen Reed, is charged with his murder.
Now, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
That's the view it would have gotten.
But is there something more going on here? Is Karen Reed the victim of a massive cover-up? During my investigation, I have uncovered a town full of corruption. Here's what I believe happened and why I believe Karen Reed was framed.
Don't you want to ask some questions? I know you do.
I do. I have been. I have. You think that you could outsmart Karen Reed? Did you? It's. How can you wear those buttons when you covered up his murder? Any comment on that? Why you Googled that 227? On the morning of January 29, 2022, Boston police officer John O'Keefe was found dead outside of the Canton home of Boston Police Sergeant Brian Albert on 34 Fairview Road. O'Keefe's girlfriend, Karen Reed, was charged with manslaughter after reportedly backing over O'Keefe with her car after she got into a fight with him and dropped him off at Albert's house after a night of drinking. She was castigated widely as a cop-killing villain, set to face decades in prison. But as it would turn out, at least a dozen people were in the house when John O'Keefe was being violently beaten to death before hatching an elaborate plot to frame Karen Reed for killing him. The cover-up was aided and abetted by members of the state police, the Canton Police Department, and the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. This is the story of one woman alone, facing down some of the most powerful, well-protected people in the state who sought to destroy her life and exonerate herself. This is Karen Reed and John O'Keefe. Karen is an intelligent, successful accountant and college professor with not even a hint of a criminal record. She'd been dating John O'Keefe for several years and loved his niece and nephew, who he adopted after both of their parents, including his sister, passed away. She owned a house in Mansfield that was rented out, but lived with O'Keefe and his niece and nephew at his home on One Meadows Ave in Canton. O'Keefe was a well-liked veteran, 16 years on the force of the Boston Police Department. On February 2nd, Reed was charged with killing John O'Keefe, only with manslaughter though, and she may have actually believed she was responsible. 4 months later, in June, the charges were upgraded to murder, despite no real evidence coming out that added to the story. State Trooper Michael Proctor wrote the criminal complaint for her arrest, noting his 10 years of experience on the State Police Detective Unit at the Norfolk County DA's office. The charging documents state that Canton officers Seraph and Malini were dispatched at 6:04 a.m. on January 29th to 34 Fairview Road, where they found 3 females, Karen Reed, Jennifer McCabe, and Kerry Roberts, next to the body of John O'Keefe. Karen Reed was performing CPR. Jennifer McCabe is pictured in this photo on the right next to her sister Nicole Albert, who is the wife of well-connected Boston Police Sergeant Brian Albert. Brian is on the fugitive apprehension team. He is a trained MMA fighter, and he was featured on the cop show Boston's Finest. At 11:30 a.m. on January 29th, Trooper Proctor interviewed Jennifer McCabe and her husband Matthew McCabe, along with Brian Albert and Nicole Albert, comfortably at the home of Jennifer McCabe. They told him that they were out at the Waterfall Bar in Canton, where Jennifer McCabe met up with her friend John O'Keefe and his girlfriend Karen Reed, who she did not know very well. The connection between them was that John O'Keefe's niece was good friends with Jennifer McCabe's daughter. Trooper Proctor was allegedly told by Jennifer that she saw Reed enter the bar carrying a vodka soda drink in a glass, which most bars would not allow, and indicated that perhaps she was drunk. The 3 grown adults in their 40s left shortly after midnight to go to an after party at Brian Albert's house. According to Jennifer, she got there first. At 12:30, she says that she witnessed Karen Reed drive up in her black Lexus SUV. Since O'Keefe only knew McCabe at this house, he texted her to make sure that she was there. Jennifer claimed that John O'Keefe never entered the house, so she texted him hello at 12:45 before witnessing Karen drive away in her black SUV. We would later find out that most of that was a lie. She told Proctor that she assumed that he and Reed decided to go home. Jennifer received a phone call from a distraught Karen at 4:53 a.m. looking for O'Keefe. Jennifer, who for some reason was still up at 4:53 a.m. after a night of drinking, told Trooper Proctor that she offered to help Karen look for John O'Keefe along with O'Keefe's friend Kerry Roberts, who was not at the house that night. Karen was hysterical and could not drive in her condition, so Carrie drove both of them. Jennifer claims that during the ride, Karen said, quote, "Could I have hit him? Did I hit him?" She also told the state police that Karen's SUV had a cracked taillight. The two of them then jumped in Carrie Roberts' car and they drove back to 34 Fairview Road. When they got there, Karen immediately noticed O'Keefe's body outside, but the other two did not. This was part of the reason that Karen was charged. Trooper Proctor believed that Karen knew exactly where the body would be because she knew that she ran him over and left him to die during the middle of the snowstorm. We later recreated this scene at 34 Fairview Road. John O'Keefe was 6'2", 217 pounds. His body was found exactly 12 feet from the curb. There are no obstructions blocking anyone from seeing him. It would have been physically impossible for Carrie Roberts and Jennifer McCabe not to have seen his body because they were sitting in the front. They were also specifically looking for a body at that time. And somehow they claim that they did not see him, but Karen Reed did, and this ended up implicating her. O'Keefe's arm had 6 bloodied lacerations and his eyes were swollen shut in black and blue. His eyelid had a cut on it and his clothes were covered in blood and vomit. A medical examiner said that he had 2 swollen black eyes, a cut on the left side of his nose, a 2-inch laceration in the back of his head, and multiple skull fractures. There is no possible way that he could have these kinds of injuries from being backed into by his girlfriend's car, especially since the snow and grass would have comforted his fall. Carrie Roberts told Trooper Proctor that Karen Reed was drunk and hysterical when she saw her at 5 a.m. and stated that she was so drunk she didn't even remember going there. Carrie repeated the same story as Jennifer, that Karen made statements suggesting that she may have accidentally hit him or that he had gotten hit by a plow. At 4:30 p.m., Trooper Proctor claimed that he went to the home of Karen Reed's parents in Dighton and claimed to have observed her SUV parked in the driveway with a shattered taillight. We would later find out that this was untrue. Call logs from the Dighton Police Department show that Trooper Proctor actually called for a tow truck at 3:02 p.m. before he had ever allegedly even seen the broken taillight and thus would have no reason to tow the car. We also have footage from Karen Reed's parents' house showing the car being towed at 4:12 p.m. ADA Adam Lally would later blame that on daylight savings, even though Alarm.com automatically resets for daylight savings. This proves that Trooper Proctor was lying about what time he took the car, leaving him alone with the vehicle unaccounted for at least 1 hour and 18 minutes. Proctor interviewed her and Karen denied bringing a drink into the Waterfall bar. She said that she dropped O'Keefe off at the party at 12:15, but since she didn't know anyone there very well, she was feeling sick and she was a grown-ass woman in her 40s who doesn't go to after parties and play beer pong, so she elected not to stay. She lived with O'Keefe less than 3 miles away, so getting home wouldn't be a problem for him. Proctor claimed that Karen told him that she never saw O'Keefe go inside the house and had no idea how she had a broken taillight. Both of these statements made her look guilty. When she found O'Keefe's body later, his eyes were swollen and he was still bleeding from the nose and mouth. Karen attempted to call and text John O'Keefe multiple times after dropping him off. He would never knock him home, knowing his niece and nephew needed him in the morning. Trooper Proctor asked her leading questions designed to incriminate her about whether or not she had ever been in an argument with O'Keefe, and there isn't a couple on earth that hasn't been in a fight before. So Karen felt it was normal to tell Proctor that they had an argument over breakfast. This is why you should never talk to police without a lawyer if you're a suspect in a crime. They are not there to be your friend. They are there to get you to say something that will lead you to being charged criminally. Later found out was good friends with Caitlin Albert, the grown daughter of Brian Albert, who was inside 34 Fairview Road the night that John O'Keefe was killed, was one of the first responders to the scene. She told Trooper Proctor that Karen said to her friend, "I hit him," quote unquote, several times, further incriminating herself. Proctor's report also states that 2 red pieces of taillight were next to O'Keefe's body, which was the final piece of evidence needed to charge her with manslaughter. Except in the original report from the Canton Police Department, it never mentions anything about any taillight, and only 2 inches of snow had fallen at that time. As a matter of fact, the only thing that they found were droplets of blood, which they kept in red Solo cups, and some shattered cocktail glass, which apparently Karen Reed hit him with before backing into him with her car and killing him. Sure. But Trooper Proctor never once mentioned that he was a close personal friend with the McCabe and Albert families, which were prominent names in Canton. Here's a picture from Proctor's sister's Facebook page showing Trooper Proctor with Jennifer McCabe's children. ADA Adam Lally would later contend
the child that's depicted in that particular photograph is not one of the McCabe's children.
Oh, really?
McCabe's have 4 daughters. That's not one of them. It's a relative.
Indeed, he does have his arm around his niece. However, there are 2 girls in towels and bathing suits directly behind him who are, in fact, Jennifer McCabe's children. Here's another picture from Proctor's sister's Facebook page showing her at a family party with Chris Albert, the brother of Brian Albert, directly behind her. Chris Albert was at the bar with O'Keefe the night he was killed, and he owns a local pizza shop in town called D&E Pizza. It's unknown if he was inside his brother's house that night because Trooper Proctor has deliberately prevented Google from sharing geofence data that could provide that information. Chris Albert lived at 7 Meadows Ave in Canton, 3 doors away from John O'Keefe, who lived at 1 Meadows Ave. Chris's son, Colin Albert, was an 18-year-old senior at Canton High School at the time of the incident and is confirmed to have been inside the house at 34 Fairview Road that night. Colin was a star football player at Canton High School and a notorious hothead. There are multiple videos that we have posted of Colin in which he's threatening rivals in town and even ends it with bang, bang, which apparently is supposed to scare you into believing that this man will kill you. 2 days after John O'Keefe died, the Canton High School Twitter account announced that Colin would be playing football at Bridgewater State next year. Colin is an out-of-control meathead who frequently was confrontational towards his much older adult neighbor, John O'Keefe. He constantly trespassed on his property, threw beer cans on his lawn. He is the prototypical jock who thinks that Shakespeare was a huge loser and infamously poses for pictures sticking either his middle finger up or his fist in the air while pounding down Dylan Mulvaney lights. Colin has anger issues and gets off on knowing that he comes from a well-connected family in town. His uncle Brian, of course, is a Boston police sergeant. His uncle Kevin is a Canton police officer. His father, Chris, was recently elected to the Board of Selectmen. Here he is on the left, pictured with his father and his uncle Brian on the far right. The man in the middle is his other uncle, Tim Albert, the family moron who takes pride in being from a well-connected family despite providing nothing of value to contribute to the family's brand name. Trooper Proctor's family knew Colin since he was a little boy. Here he is pictured with his Michael Proctor's sister once again. Here's another picture of Proctor's sister she posted on Facebook from her 2012 wedding, showing Trooper Proctor on the far left and Colin on the right as a 7-year-old boy. They were both in the wedding party together. Not once did it ever occur to Proctor to mention that he was a close friend to a well-connected Canton family of cops and politicians and was investigating the death of a Boston police officer at one of their homes. He was in possession of all evidence to this crime and decided who would, and more importantly, who would not be investigated.
There is no conflict. Proctor is not conflicted in this case. I indicated that.
Colin Albert likes to get in fights and boast about it. A picture he posted on Visco shortly after the death of John O'Keefe shows his right knuckles covered in abrasions, indicating that he had punched someone or something recently. None of this has been made public, and the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office hasn't sent a mountain of exculpatory evidence to Karen Reed's defense attorneys until recently. This evidence that they've withheld includes DNA evidence from John's body that could prove whether or not a dog had bitten him, for instance, as well as a 2-minute video clip from the Canton Library, which would have shown whether or not Karen Reed's taillight was broken after dropping John O'Keefe off at 34 Fairview Road, because if it wasn't broken, that means that she didn't hit him with her car. This evidence proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that she had nothing to do with John O'Keefe's death, but suggests that Colin Albert, Brian Albert's German Shepherd Chloe, Jennifer McCabe, Matt McCabe, and every other person in that house either witnessed or knew about the murder of John O'Keefe and conspired to frame Karen Reed after the fact. Unfortunately for them, Karen Reed is an extremely intelligent and well-resourced woman who can afford world-class representations. She initially had an attorney by the name of David Yannetti, a well-respected Boston lawyer with more than 30 years of experience, who used to be a prosecutor. However, Yannetti can only do so much, and Karen Reed quickly realized after time that she was up against some powerful forces and she would need more representation, particularly when it came to cell phone expertise, which a lot of this case hinges on. So she did some searching and she found a guy by the name of Alan Jackson from Los Angeles who had previously represented a man by the name of Kevin Spacey in Nantucket. Kevin Spacey was accused of sexually assaulting an 18-year-old bartender, but But later we found out through the use of forensic technology that the quote unquote victim and his mother had deleted a number of incriminating messages that showed that the boy was not actually a victim at all. Her attorneys filed a motion demanding a forensic audit of Jennifer McCabe and Brian Albert's cell phones and for all communications before and after O'Keefe's death. However, to this day, they have not gotten Albert's cell phone. Jennifer McCabe, on the other hand, voluntarily handed over her phone, thinking that if she deleted enough information, no one would find it. And indeed, that initially worked. State Police Detective Nicholas Guarino claimed to do a full extraction of her phone, and nothing really incriminating came back. But it didn't smell right to Alan Jackson. So they did another search of her phone, and they hired a man by the name of Richard Green, an expert in his field. And Richard Green did a much more thorough and expensive search into Jennifer McCabe's phone. What they discovered in April was shocking. They found that the Norfolk County DA's office intentionally hid evidence showing that Jennifer McCabe had searched, quote, how long to die in cold, except she spelled it H-O-S, Hoss long to die in cold, at 2:27 a.m. on the night that John O'Keefe died. Well, how could she do that if she thought, why would she do that? More importantly, if she believed, as she told Trooper Proctor, that John O'Keefe had gone home and gone to bed, why would he possibly be dying in the cold? Unless, of course, the plan was to put his body in the cold so that he died from hypothermia.
How can you wear those buttons when you covered up his murder? Any comment on that? Why you Googled that at 2:27? Any comment, Mr. McCabe?
Brian Albert was never questioned at his house, only at the McCabe's house, which was interesting because a dead body was found in his yard. Canton Deputy Police Chief Tom Keller happens to live across the street from Brian Albert on Fairview Road. He has a ring camera that would have picked up video of O'Keefe's body being hit that night.
That's the view it would have gotten.
That's the exact view. Wow. However, he told police that conveniently he did not capture anything of value on his ring camera. It was never subpoenaed. Jennifer McCabe not only searched for how long to die in cold, she also deleted all communications on her phone between herself, Brian Albert, and her sister, Nicole Albert. If Jennifer McCabe didn't think it was unusual for John O'Keefe to leave, then why did she stay up until 5 a.m. awaiting Karen Reed's phone call about John O'Keefe being missing? If Jennifer McCabe had nothing to hide, then why was she destroying critical evidence around the time that John O'Keefe's body was discovered? Why was Jennifer McCabe more committed to protecting Brian Albert and her sister Nicole, who was married to Brian? After O'Keefe got to Albert's home, he began texting McCabe to make sure she was there, since she was the only person he knew well, or at all. When he entered, he was surprised to see 18-year-old Colin Albert was there, who likely confronted him at some point and hit him, according to the theory proposed by Alan Jackson and David Yannetti in their court filings. Our sources believe that Brian Albert joined in on the beating, alarming his loyal German Shepherd, which immediately began to tear into John O'Keefe's arm. Despite being their family dog, Brian Albert got rid of Chloe and never explained where the dog went. The defense team has since filed motions to try to get animal control records about the dog, which for some reason the ADA's office objected to. Unfortunately for him, the defense won their motion and the records were impounded. And as I speak right now, they are still trying to get those unimpounded. A motion has been filed on June 7th for that. Definitely in that house that night were Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Brian Albert Jr., Colin Albert, Caitlin Albert, Jennifer and Matthew McCabe, friends of Albert Jr. named Julie Nagel, Emily Fabiano, and Sarah Levinson, and an ATF agent named Brian Higgins, who has an office inside the Canton Police Department. O'Keefe would make 12 at a minimum. We have one picture of Higgins with O'Keefe, who was with Brian Albert earlier in the day in New York, and they had driven back after a police officer's funeral there, and they've been very chummy since then. This means that all of these people either witnessed the murder or somehow had no idea that a murder took place in a house they were in, and they've said nothing. Not one of them claims to have seen a 6'2", 217-pound body lying on the front lawn after leaving. One witness named Ryan Nagel went to the home to pick up his sister Julie, who ended up staying there. He was the only witness who had no familial ties to the Albert, and thus no reason to frame Karen Reed. He said that he witnessed Reed outside of the house. They arrived on Fairview Road at basically the same time, coming from different directions. He yielded to her. He allowed her to turn right onto the street. Now, keep in mind, it was snowing and visibility was difficult. So Karen Reed pulled up in front of the driveway, and she claims that John O'Keefe got out and ran into the house. She then pulled up a little further along the left-hand side of the property and said that she was beginning to text him because he was supposed to text her back to let her know everything's all set. You can go home now. Ryan Nagel has all but confirmed that this is exactly what happened because according to his own testimony, he said that he didn't see any damage to her vehicle, never heard any screams, never witnessed her operating the vehicle erratically, and when he drove by her, most importantly, she was alone in the vehicle and her interior lights were on. Her hands were at 10 and 2. Yet John O'Keefe's body was not on the ground, so where could he be if not inside the house? Additionally, O'Keefe's phone tracked him walking up and down the stairs, ascending and descending inside the Albert home from 12:21 to 12:24. Obviously, it would not show this sort of up and down motion if he was inside Karen Reed's car or lying on the ground outside the home. And remember, the cell phone says he's in there between 12:21 and 12:24. Jennifer McCabe said he did not arrive there until 12:30. State police in the DA's office deliberately kept all of this information from the defense, including Jennifer McCabe's incriminating Google search. Jennifer McCabe's cell phone analysis shows that she left the Albert house at 1:47 a.m. with Matthew McCabe, Julie Nagel, and Sarah Levinson. Alan Jackson asserted in his filings that she gave the other two a ride home because they lived near Meadows Ave and she wanted to drive by John O'Keefe's house to see if Karen Reed was up, to understand whether or not they had time to get rid of his body or whether or not she was up wondering where he was. So she dropped them both off at 2:27. Her Apple Watch recorded her going to her bedroom and Googling how long to die in cold, despite previously telling police that she assumed that John O'Keefe had gone home with Karen Reed. Why would she Google that if she thought he was home sleeping? A normal person after a night of drinking would be sleeping at 2:30 a.m. McCabe, instead of going to bed, elected to pace around her house nervously. That's what the Apple Health data shows, waiting for Karen Reed to contact her and ask where O'Keefe was. Somehow she anticipated this happening despite allegedly having no idea that John O'Keefe was missing. McCabe waited up for Reed because, number one, she needed to be with her when Reed discovered the body so that she could control the narrative with the police. And number two, she needed to put the idea in Reed's head that she might have accidentally hit and killed John O'Keefe while driving drunk and had no recollection of it. Reed truly believed that she might have done this and was distraught. His body was staged at the exact place where she was seen dropping him off before leaving. Although it is interesting that they claim that she did a 3-point turn, but only Michael Proctor claims that. He claims that Reed told him that she did a 3-point turn, except that makes no sense. That, of course, would be the only way that she could have backed into John O'Keefe, is if she did a 3-point turn. If she just kept going straight south on Fairview Road, then she couldn't have backed into him. Both Jennifer and Matt McCabe claim that that is the exact direction that she went in, was south, that there was no 3-point turn. Despite barely knowing Karen Reed, Jennifer McCabe gleefully jumped in the car with her and Kerry Roberts. It is believed or asserted by the defense that this intentional delay guaranteed that O'Keefe would be dead by the time anyone found him. Remember, how long to die in cold, and that he would be unable to tell the real story about what happened. It is important to point out that when John O'Keefe was put outside to die, he was still alive. They did this so that the medical examiner could say that one of the causes of his death was hypothermia. Remember also that Jennifer McCabe initially told investigators that Karen Reed brought in a drink from another bar to the Waterfall bar, which only a drunken, low-class individual would do. But Karen Reed had a good job and made good money. Why would she do such a thing? Nevertheless, McCabe successfully planted the seed in Reed's brain that she may have accidentally killed O'Keefe. Jennifer McCabe also deleted phone calls to her sister Nicole Albert at 6:07 and 6:08. Those are now gone. They were 7 and 9 seconds long, and someone answered that phone. Now, ADA Lally has since claimed that that's evidence states that the calls went to voicemail, except only unanswered calls go to voicemail, and that makes no sense. This proved that McCabe had made them aware that there was a dead body outside of their house. There was not enough time for her to explain, oh my God, there's a dead body out here. I don't know what's going on, but there was plenty of time in 7 to 9 seconds to say, Karen Reed is here. Don't come outside. This proved that McCabe made them aware that there was a dead body outside the house. Yet Brian Albert, a veteran Boston police officer and trained first responder, did not even come outside, despite the fact that there were a plethora of emergency vehicles, a lot of people making noises, blue and red lights flashing everywhere, and radios going off. And oh yeah, a screaming, hysterical woman on his front lawn named Karen Reed. A broken cocktail glass was found next to O'Keefe's body, which Canton police initially said was the murder weapon. O'Keefe's body was clearly visible as not much snow had accumulated, yet McCabe and Roberts didn't see it. Only Karen Reed did. After notifying the Alberts about the dead cop on their property, Jennifer McCabe Googled, quote, how long does it take to digest food? 10 minutes after finding a body. The presence of food particles in a dead person's stomach helped pathologists determine time of death. At this point, Jen McCabe was panicking because she knew how suspicious the how long to die in cold Google search was at 2:27 a.m. She decided to search for that same thing again after discovering O'Keefe's body, hoping that it would make it look less suspicious. And as this might be something a person might Google after finding a body outside. In doing so, she hoped that it would make the first search disappear. Unfortunately, she spelled the words wrong the first time she searched it, not even close to the original Haas long to die in cold. The second time, she spelled it the exact same way. Haas long to die in cold. Not how. This was intentional. She later told law enforcement that it was Karen Reed who told her to Google that. Luckily for McCabe, Brian Albert's brother is a Canton cop. His other brother is a selectman. His neighbor is the deputy chief, and the trooper in charge of the investigation was a close family friend who helped cover up the murder. It was going to be covered up regardless. When you thought that Jennifer McCabe couldn't get any lower, she also has been sharing fundraisers for John O'Keefe despite helping to cover up for his murder. Jennifer McCabe goes to every single court date. She comforts the family of John O'Keefe. She has John O'Keefe's badge number decaled on the back of her car. She has blue lights in front of her house and constantly wears thin blue line stuff everywhere. She is utterly shameless. Obviously, Jennifer McCabe did not kill John O'Keefe since she's not physically capable of that, but Brian Albert, Colin Albert, and the dog were more than capable of that, and Colin Albert had the motive. McCabe was just the quarterback of the cover-up and seemed to want to protect Brian Albert more than even his own wife did. Take from that what you will. Jennifer McCabe would never have been able to cover up this murder without the assistance of law enforcement, despite the fact that it was one of her own, their own rather, who was killed. According to Reed's defense attorneys, the original Canton Police Department report had been altered. In the altered report, it never stated the CERT team found the taillight at 6 p.m. after Trooper Proctor had taken possession of Reed's vehicle. The altered report also had a different cell phone number that McCabe called after finding the body, indicating that police were taking steps to make sure that Brian Albert is not in any way a suspect. New evidence has also shown that Albert rehomed the dog that attacked O'Keefe. He claims to know where that dog is, yet they won't tell the court where it is. In September of 2022, Reed's lawyers publicly accused the Albert family in open court of being implicated in John O'Keefe's murder, and they ordered them, through the judge, not to delete anything from their phones. 2 weeks later, Tim Albert, the Fredo of the family, posted a meme on Facebook stating, quote, "You don't fuck with my family," and that he won't hesitate to make you miserable if you do. Just a couple days after these filings were made in court, Tim Albert decided that it would be a good time in October to fill in his pool. Nothing shady about that. Tim is the loser of the family who seeks approval by virtue signaling about how loyal he is so that he can enjoy the fruits of the success while contributing nothing himself. This post was clearly a direct attempt to intimidate Karen Reed, her attorneys, and reporters like me who expose people like him for being dirtbags. After being accused in September by Reed's attorneys, Brian Albert immediately decided that it would be a good time to sell his childhood home, which had been in the family for almost 50 years. It sold rather quickly for $50,000 less than they were asking for it, and as a result was never searched by police, despite the fact that a Boston cop was probably murdered inside of it and was found dead on that property. The person most responsible for the cover-up is certainly Trooper Proctor, who failed to speak to key witnesses, protected his close friends, and never applied for geofence data that would show the identities of every person in that house that night. We later later found out that he lied about what time that he arrived at Karen Reed's parents' house in order to have the car by himself for 1 hour and 18 minutes. We also found out that in his reports, he intentionally misspelled the names of at least 4 witnesses, including Sarah Levinson, Caitlin Albert, a woman by the name of Emily Fabiano, and Catherine Duty, whose father, Charles Duty, happens to be the town moderator and was the chief of the Canton Police Department at the time that John O'Keefe died. However, Brian Albert didn't mention until April of 2022 in front of a grand jury that his dog was aggressive and not great with strangers. Despite being at an after party, everyone at 34 Fairview Road fled the home within an hour after O'Keefe had arrived. Cool party. Remember, they allegedly had no idea he was dead, so why would they all leave the scene of the crime? They're there to party. Canton police used red Solo cups to store blood evidence at the scene of the crime, but did not discover any pieces of a broken taillight in there for a search. Remember, only 2 inches of snow had fallen by 6 a.m. when the Canton Police Department arrived. 2 hours later, the state police took over the investigation, and 12 hours later is when over a foot of snow had fallen, and boom, Trooper Proctor magically found not only pieces of taillight fragment everywhere, but John's other missing shoe, which was not there at the time of the first search by the Canton Police Department. So then, how did Karen Reed break her taillight? Well, Ring surveillance video from Reed's home shows her backing into O'Keefe's car and slightly hitting it on the way to search for him. On the way out, you can see that the taillight is slightly cracked, although certainly not shattered. It is believed that during that hour and 18 minutes, Trooper Proctor had the car unaccounted for. He may have smashed it up a little bit more. So how did they find all these pieces of taillight if the Canton police did not find any? Well, that would be Trooper Proctor, who, as I stated, was able to have the car unaccounted for 1 hour and 18 minutes. Luckily, they found it the second time. They just decided to search the scene of the crime on a hunch. And even more remarkably, Canton Police Chief Ken Berkowitz also decided to go to the scene of the crime on a hunch on February 4th and noticed more pieces of the taillight from his moving vehicle. Berkowitz had been called by ATF agent Brian Higgins, who was in the house when O'Keefe was murdered immediately after the killing. Brian Higgins turned out to be a good friend of Ken Berkowitz and helped organize his retirement party several months later, which Brian Albert also attended along with District Attorney Michael Morrissey. Trooper Proctor also went out of his way to make sure that Google didn't send him all the geofence data that the defense had requested. Karen Reed appears to be a completely innocent woman.
Tried to save his life. I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Wrongly charged by corrupt cops who would see her rot in prison in order to cover up a murder of a fellow police officer. If she didn't have the resources, then none of this would have come out. Trooper Proctor and the district attorney's office went out of their way to make sure that evidence that they knew would exonerate her would never be given to the defense team. As a result of O'Keefe's niece and nephew, whom she loved as her own, now believe that she killed their adopted father. Trooper Proctor, Brian Albert, Colin Albert, Jennifer McCabe, and Brian Higgins all deserve to spend time in jail, and 2 of them at least should be charged with murder. The Canton police chief and deputy chief should both be fired, but as I said, Ken Berkowitz decided it would be a good time to resign after this. We hope that Karen Reed sues all of these people after she's exonerated and that the bad guys go to jail. Every single person in that house should be charged with obstruction of justice as they witnessed a crime and never reported it. They all lied. There is no possible way that they could not have seen a body on the way out. There's no possible way. So either the body was not there, in which case Karen Reed did not strike him, or they are all lying to the police. You pick which one they're doing. Haven't even begun to see the really crazy shit.